Hi, I'm Marina Sirtis, and you're going boldly with Beyond Trek podcast.
This is Beyond Trek Podcast, your source for Star Trek on social media and around the web. I'm BigJ.
I'm Watney.
And I'm Dag, the Trivia Master. You can find us on Facebook at Beyond Trek Podcast and on Twitter at Beyond Trek Pod.
Red alert.
Well, how are you guys holding up with this stupid quarantine that we're under?
We're having a wake for Star Trek Picard.
We're mourning. Watney's in
I'm
mourning.
in mourning.
Oh.
Watney's in mourning due to the time zone. I'm also in afternoon. Jay's at night.
Yes. Well,
that was your Dag joke for the day.
I missed it.
Yeah.
I must have missed it. I'm sorry. I'm concerned with Watney because she's all depressed. Well, okay, so I've got my prune juice. I know that's not going to cheer you up, Watney, and that's my Warriors drink. And Dag is that blood wine you've got? And, well, that's a little bright, Watney. You have to pull that back. Is that Fresco? Something? Yes. Okay. So
this is my favorite mug. My mom got me this for Christmas.
Oh, she did. That's nice. I like that. Mug. I like that mug. Well, before we get into it, Dag, why don't we start with our spoiler alert?
That is true. If you are listening to this, we're going to dive head deep into these spoilers for this episode. So, press pause, watch the episode, or don't. We're not your parents. But yeah, we're this ain't going to be an episode review. We're going to assume you've already seen it.
Right.
Because Dag is mad.
Oh, okay. So
and Watney's sad.
Dag is mad. Watney is sad, and I'm glad.
And Big J's glad. I thought Big J was rad, but I'll go with glad.
I'm rad. Oh, you guys are depressing me. Okay, so who wants to start?
So, ask me why I'm in mourning.
Watney, why are you in mourning?
Narissa died, and that's all. Nobody else. I don't care about nobody else.
Thanks for watching our podcast, everybody. It's the shortest episode ever. We really appreciate it.
Look at my hair. It looks beautiful.
Are you depressed? Are you depression eating? That's what's happening because of Narissa?
I'm depression eating just cause.
Oh, gotcha.
Like,
hey, not to be outdone, Watney got me addicted to like white cheddar Cheez-Its.
Yeah.
And then Lottie went to the store and brought back like these super seasoned, like garden style cheddar Cheez-Its.
Oh.
We got Cheez-Its coming out of our ears, but tomorrow we're going to need more.
Right. Right.
They are quite addictive. I don't know what they put on it. Definitely crack. Probably something else too. Did we introduce ourselves?
No, because that's already in the beginning.
We've got the intro up. They know that I'm Watney and you're Dag.
Yeah, okay. It's taken care of then. The housekeeping is all done.
Okay, I'm BigJ.
So welcome to the Ocarina of Time podcast.
See, I got it when you said Mass Effect, but I'm totally missing the Ocarina of Time.
The magic wand doesn't look like an ocarina to you.
It did. Yeah. It did. So let's
see. I was going to call this the Demolition Man Terminator Battlestar Galactica podcast, and you'll see why when we get to trivia.
You have to have a battle to be Battlestar.
Well, when we get to trivia, you'll see the battle that I'm talking about.
Okay.
And that's great to get us a step closer towards that trivia. Let's dive into our episode because I want to know why Watney's depressed and Dag is angry.
I love these establishing shots, first of all.
Mm-hmm.
Throughout the series, they've done some really good job with these establishing shots. And so when Narek is running towards the cube at the beginning, and the cube's sort of just there in the water in the sunrise or sunset, whatever that is, I just think that's a really beautiful picture. Mm-hmm. And Narek's going there because he's looking for his sister, who he finds, and that's all nice and everything. And there's this weird discussion with Seven and Elnor about, why don't the XBs just kill themselves? Oh, because I miss them. And I'm like, this feels really weird. Anybody?
Elnor is he can't be that dumb. Like, he just can't be that stupid. I mean,
you think he
grew up with a bunch of Romulans. It's not like he grew up like on the planet of the apes or something. Like he should have upper like cortex function or something. Like you can't just say, well, why don't they die? That's just so stupid to me.
He just very much comes off as really naive for his age.
Yes,
naive.
It's ridiculous. That's sad.
It doesn't stop me from loving him because he's that 6th grade triple black belt that knows how to defend you and everybody else, but still doesn't understand what's happening to his body.
Right. So he doesn't know his. Do you think he doesn't know his power, his strength? He's too young to be able to harness that. I think
there's a lot of concepts that he's just very, I don't know. It's like this childlike wonder, but it's just hard for me to understand what the purpose of this scene was, where Elnor's like, it makes you really wonder why the XBs just didn't off themselves and stuff.
Just the writing, dude.
And I didn't. Well, you think I should? And he's like, no, I'd miss you. And I'm like, this is a weird conversation. So we're going to move past it and we're going to talk about
it was.
Yeah, so Narek and Narissa reunite. She was, of course, on the cube the whole time.
I think that hug lasted maybe a second too long for my taste. It's just me. Knowing that they're brother and sister. I don't know.
I mean, they're obviously more than that.
Oh, stop it, Watney.
You've watched Game of Thrones, haven't you?
Well, yes, I did. Of course I watched Game of Thrones, but I'm just...
way more than hugging going on. Yeah, we see them reunite, and Narissa's like super glad to see him and wants to like, oh, let me show you my toys I just got, and like, they go back to her secret treehouse or whatever, and he's like, actually, I'm bailing. Peace.
I'm going to take these grenades and peace out.
Yeah. And she's like, I forget why they were arguing. What were they arguing about? Like in that moment, like him leaving?
Oh geez. I don't remember either.
They were arguing over who got to take them out. Who got to take out Synthville because
okay.
Because like,
wow, what edgy
mom and dad died for this, hundreds of others as well, and you get to be the one. And he's like, I'm the Zhat Vash washout that found them. I'm gonna take care of this. And so he grabs the these molecular solvents that he plans to, or at least he tells Narissa that he plans to destroy the flowers with. So when the Romulan fleet arrives, they can just proceed to wipe out the planet.
They sound like Tide bombs, what they sound like. But yeah, they were fighting over who gets to deal the final blow.
For a second, I thought you said Tide pods.
That's what I heard.
Yes, I said Tide bombs, but yeah, Tide pods. Yeah.
All good.
Because it was like some kind of high-end detergent or solvent or something. So
yeah, it's a molecular solvent.
Yep.
In between these sequences, we get Picard telling Soji that you get to choose, and Soji's like, yeah, well, everybody else is always chosen for us. The important part here is that Jurati sees that it's a retinal scanner to get in. And we're building the beacon.
Now, how do they do this? How are they building this? This is like some kind of...
They're imagining it. We're just going to explain everything with that.
Is it nanotechnology?
Using the Ocarina of Time.
Right.
They're basically holding this fucking purple thing and then pointing it, and then they're imagining it and it's happening, which is horse shit.
Yeah, I'm definitely wondering where this magic little piece of thing went.
Right.
They gave it to somebody. They gave it to fucking
bizarre MacGuffin.
It's a MacGuffin if I've ever seen one.
You never ever have to worry about the ship being broken ever again, because I'm just gonna imagine a ship that can't break. I'm cool.
Yeah. Just imagine Picard's mental issues away.
Another establishing shot.
Mm-hmm.
I just love the establishing shots. There's a lot of those in here.
You do.
I needed something that could be redeemed.
Yeah, and again,
I'm
if
so
you aren't
bitter.
if you're listening to us like on Spotify or Anchor.fm or wherever you can find us, not to sound like a broken record at this point, but we do have these discussions on YouTube where you can watch us talk about the episode. So in these discussions, we are playing slides, stills / screenshots from the episode. So kind of keeps us on track and adds some imagery. So check our YouTube out if you want to see that.
Yep. So when Narek leaves Narissa, Elnor follows, and we end up on the ship. It's broken, but we use the Ocarina of Time to fix it. And then this scene ends with some pounding on the ship. We already know how we feel about the Ocarina of Time, so we're just going to keep moving to more magical beaconness that's happening.
Well, I will say about that scene, I did like Rafi in that scene. She seemed like genuinely happy.
Yeah.
There's
she
a lot
was
of weight
like,
off her shoulders now.
there's a lot of weight. She's kind of just like, she's not the one that's having to hold the whole fucking thing together anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Like other people are taking initiative, and now they're in a place where she can like be the mothering figure, which she is pulling off very well.
And she does it a lot here. We'll see a number of times in this episode where Raffi is, taken that role.
Mm-hmm.
I just like the way Girardi's like, I'm not their mother, asshole. That was great. That was great. It's really interesting.
Soon try to make her feel good about the whole thing, and but she did play a part in it, right? In a way.
What whole thing?
The creation of the synth. It made it, it made it sound like that earlier in the season that she was somehow a more integral part of it, but then when you get to the final episode here and everything's revealed, it almost seems like, well, no, she didn't really have much of anything to do with the whole thing. I mean, what was Girardi's role in Bruce Maddox's work, his and Soong's work in this whole synth project?
Well, in the book, it's really interesting. The book really glosses over it, and the TV show gives Maddox all the credit. But in the book, Girardi is an aspiring student looking for a mentor for her thesis, and she's been sending Maddox a number of emails up until she actually confronts him in one of the lecture halls. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that she says is like, if you check that last email that I sent you, we can talk about, do you even know what you can do with one positronic neuron? And then that conversation ends and it spins off into, a different scene. But it's almost like Girardi planted that seed of that fractal neuronic cloning idea, which makes sense to me why Alton would call her the mother of the synths as they are. Mm-hmm. But if you haven't read the book, that makes no sense at all, and it feels really weird. I got you.
Okay. So then I wasn't the only one that kind of missed that.
Well, I mean, she was at Daystrom talking to Picard, so I'm curious why we thought she wasn't involved, but that's just my curiosity, I guess. I mean, she was basically explaining to Picard the whole thing, so she obviously had an integral part in it.
Right. Oh, yeah. Well, it was her idea, but now she's suddenly, I'm not their mother, asshole, kind of thing. I mean, I don't know. That part.
Maybe she didn't think of herself as their mother in the first place. Like, okay. She could have just thought of it as like, I'm pushing the boundaries of science. I'm pushing the boundaries of what we can do. Not necessarily I'm creating life.
Very good. Okay.
Could be anything, but yeah, I like Girardi in this episode. She does some cool shit.
She also gets to be the focus of a really creepy moment.
What moment is that?
She's always a creepy moment.
When she gets to play with the Ocarina of Time.
Right. Yeah.
Back on La Serena, Narek shows up. They have the conversation. We begin to learn about Ganmadan from his perspective. And then Elnor Mr. Truth and Obviousness super sneaks up on everybody with that blade and asks him in Romulan, choose to live. And Nerek's like, yes, I very much choose to live. And I was like, I
So
like
what finally
that.
answers him?
No argument
Does
for
he
me.
understand? Does
I'm
he
good
get
with
it?
that. I'm so good with that.
Oh my God, I need an eyeball.
Yeah, Girardi. That's a callback to Avengers 1 when Loki's like, what do you need? And Hawkeye's like, I need an eyeball. But in this scene, Girardi gets Alton to go check something out so that she can be alone with Saga. And she needs Saga's eye so that she can get into Picard's room. We have a little campfire next to La Serena where they talk about Gon Madan and we learn about everything. And it was kind of cool to see that all come together from a Romulan perception, especially with Zhat Vash versus Qowat Milat in terms of understanding of that. I thought that was pretty cool. But honestly, for the viewer, it's really nothing we haven't already expected before, I suppose.
A lot of exposition so far.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, there's so much telling. It's just so much telling. Okay, cool. Thanks for the information. It's like, I'm not having an emotional attachment. Like, it's just strictly business. It's not like any kind of, wow, this is your mythology. Why is this important to you? It's here's the mythology. And oh my God, they're gonna kill everybody. That's why like there's gravity, but it's very like every other franchise. So I just felt very detached during a lot of this episode and until the end. So yeah, I mean, history repeats itself. Sure, it's a common trope. The whole like, oh, the twins and everything. It kind of like we kind of guessed that it was going to go that way because of the first few episodes with Romulan, who had been the XB Romulan chick, the auntie.
Ramda.
She, had talked to Soji said she was the destroyer and was like freaking out. So we kind of knew that was the whole thing. And what did he say about the other sister, the one that she has a whip with like a bunch of skulls on it or something
that she uses to beat a drum, and she beats it so hard her heart explodes.
Yeah.
Very interesting there. One of the interesting things that he says is the second one, is the one who calls to the evil demons to get them. And, the synth beacon was saying, hey, throw this signal out into space and we'll come for you. So that was kind of interesting that they got right.
Yeah. And I guess I like, now that I'm thinking about it, I was thinking of Sutra as the other sister, when in reality it's Daj.
Yeah.
Are you talking about the 5 Queen of Hearts thing that I think that thread kind of got dropped?
That's just one more thing that I don't think ever got picked back up.
Maybe it didn't mean anything. So, I mean, when you said the other sister in regards to Sutra, what do you mean there?
Sutra and Jana were the original twins. And then Soji and Dodge were another set of twins. One was just more shiny. Right. One was more realistic looking.
Right.
So really, if Soji is the destroyer, then the skull whip beating on a drum sister is Daj. Obviously they never got to Daj never got to like fulfill her part of the prophecy or the Romulan myth. And that's like another thing I kind of want to talk about is like, why did they have to have their memories wiped in order to enact the mission? Plausible deniability?
Yes.
And that I don't think that's a good enough answer, because knowledge is power, and they were spending so much time distracted that you run the risk of them discovering what they are and everything being knocked off the rails if you don't like give them the memories that they had and try and explain to them what their mission is.
It's kind of like Total Recall. you wipe the memory, put in another memory personality, and
Mm-hmm.
I kind of get it. I think I get the implanting of the falsehood, because then there's no chance, or at least a very small chance, that your knowledge is somehow going to actually mess up the mission or what you're going for. And I get it, and I hear what you're saying, that if they hadn't had their minds wiped, would they have been more successful? And I don't know. I do see some value in it's better that this person have this whole other sense of self and these false memories than to go in knowing what to do or knowing who they are, et cetera, et cetera. But to put in that failsafe of you get activated when XYZ conditions are met.
Yeah, I get the, like, it's the whole tabula rasa aspect where you start with like a clean slate and you move forward from X point in time. And Michael, how do you say his name? Michael Chabon.
Yeah.
On his Instagram story, somebody asked him what was Daj's mission and what was Soji's mission, because they had separate things going on. Soji
Right.
was already on the artifact, so her mission was to find out the truth behind the synth ban by infiltrating a Romulan outpost. And then Daj's mission, this is according to the writer, was to find out the truth behind the synth ban by infiltrating Daystrom / Starfleet. Which makes sense, because at the beginning, Daj is talking to her boyfriend about how excited she was that she just got accepted.
And we don't get it.
Well, no, the question is like, who accepted her? Daystrom. Did it not do a background check? What's the whole deal there? Like, they have all these identities, I guess. It's just so weird to me that you have to wipe their memory. Like, are they not like intelligent enough to like be covert, like Narek, for example?
Yeah.
It just seems like a plot point that's like, oh, here's how we started. I know I don't know you, Picard, but I trust you. It's just another thing that's not really answered in the show. And
just like we don't get to know how, what happened on Mars. We don't get the closure of who hacked the Siths. What happened there?
It was the Romulans. O said it was that.
It was Commodore O.
Commodore.
Maybe she may not have pressed the button, although I think she did. But it was definitely a Zot Vash plot, and I am pretty comfortable in saying that Commodore O was the one that pressed the button. But so I understand if I'm Bruce Maddox and I have these two twins, very much human looking, human acting, human thought synths, and I want to get to the bottom of the ban, I understand getting into Starfleet, somehow getting close to that, infiltrating there. But what did he think he was going to possibly even gain by sending the other one to a Borg artifact? Because at that time, so were the Romulans suspected as being complicit in the whole thing? It just I don't get what it was that
the synths were told that everyone thought the synths did it.
Right, but there was nothing that said we should be suspicious of the Romulans, at least suspicious enough to send an android to this cube. I don't get the connection there.
I think I'm with you. It's not obvious to me either.
Yeah, the like it feels like a house of cards.
Yeah.
We
didn't get enough time with Maddox to really get his logic there.
No, because they killed him off because he had all the answers. And they didn't feel like writing the
screw with our narrative. Get out.
they don't feel like explaining shit, and he's the
Right.
guy canonically who can explain it.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's just fucking kill this old, like, this character from TNG
Mhm.
and just end his life, you know. At least Hugh got to like do something. It's like I'm just infinitely frustrated with how this season played out, and can't exactly say I'm super excited for season 2, but
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I followed episodes 1 through 9, and I was like, okay, there's some reaches, there's some reaches, there's some reaches. And then episode 10 came and was like, oh, that's where you're going with this? Fine. I can't sigh any longer than that. I wish I could.
Where did you
I
want them to
definitely
go?
not to Mass Effect, basically.
Wait,
Is that what you're saying?
Well, I might be
I
jumping
mean,
ahead. I don't want to jump ahead on your slides.
I feel like they circumvented our Mass Effect idea where the bad guy, the Synthulu was going to show up and wreak havoc, and there was going to be some kind of like really epic conversation where Jean-Luc, you know, dying on the bridge of La Serena, or even on the planet surrounded by the synths, actually is able to make contact with the Synthulu and explain, hey, we're not perfect, but we care about these people. And, you know, if you can, you know, check me out because I still have Borg tech, so you should be able to hack that and read my mind. You can check out my authenticity. And then Synthulu would be like, all right, we'll give you a chance and bail. That would be okay.
I don't feel like the Synthulu gives a shit.
Right.
I think
That's true.
Synthulu is deceiving the synths, and I think that they want to be probably the superior synthetic life form, and so they're going to come back and just destroy everything. I don't think that they actually given their portrayal as basically a tentacle monster, I don't think that they have much interest in hearing people out, especially because the prophecy says that like entrails will be on the streets covered in blood, and like I don't think they want to talk.
Yeah,
I think that they want to come back, and the way they do this is by synths creating the beacon to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Whether or not they're on the synth side, sure they might be, but I think they have more of a vetted interest in destroying that organic life.
Yeah.
So I mean, we don't know how it's going to end up now. I mean, they're not in the picture really because everyone's getting along. So
again, more cool, pretty establishing shots. The lead bird of prey with Commodore Shades talking about our great
love
work.
her. Yeah.
I thought she was great. I thought she was horribly underused and severely one-dimensional. I think Tamlin Tamita knocked it out of the park with what she was given.
Yeah.
And on one hand, you know, she survives to be Insidious for another day, which would be great. You know, and as we'll see, this Commodore / General who infiltrated Starfleet just gets to walk away at the end. No pursuit, no turn yourself over for arrest. None of that. Our hero shows up and is like, now get out of here and I'll escort you.
Okay. We're gonna have to come back to that because that's a good point.
We plan our trip back into Synthville where we're gonna
how do we hide it?
Yeah, how do we hide it? And Rios looks casually at his stack of soccer balls.
Very convenient that there were soccer balls.
Obviously,
I mean, he plays
reason.
soccer. They established that already, so that makes sense. And
yeah, that was actually made sense. You're right.
Well, I mean,
the question is how do they like take this? How do they cut it open and put the fucking thing in it? Because the soccer ball has a tiny little
right. Well, if he was a baseball fan, they would have been screwed.
For the audience, every question
Golf?
we don't have can probably be answered with the Ocarina of Time when it comes to making stuff. I don't know. I thought it was cool that
they. Go ahead. No, you go.
Okay. We're not Canadian. I thought it was just really cool that one synth guy was like, "Hey, you play?"
That was great. Yeah.
This would be so great if we just make peace with the synth through soccer. Done. Rios saves the world. Didn't see that coming.
Everyone comes together for soccer. All differences are put aside for soccer.
What were you gonna say, Watney?
I just was gonna sidebar about the device again, the blue sonic screwdriver / ocarina. It's like I really appreciated the idea of it in the instance where Rios was repairing his ship, and it was a minor fix, very small. But in the instance of I'm going to generate a like basically holographic image of 100 Las Serenas, it seemed, that crosses a line with me.
Yeah.
From a writing perspective. And I think it's extremely lazy to rely on the small little device to wrap up your story. And I have an issue with it. Go ahead.
I think you're touching on something that I was touching on, that I was thinking about too. And when we get to that confrontation, we could talk about it more. But you end up with, the Romulan fleet takes out the Orchids, and it's just La Serena. And then we project all these holograms of La Serenas for no other purpose than just to waste time. Why didn't the Starfleet fleet come in sooner?
They didn't get notified until.
Well, I mean, they were supposed to be after the Romulan fleet, which would have been fine. But this whole, 60-second time waste of the Romulan fleet fighting a bunch of holographic La Serenas, I just missed the integral meaning of it, other than to fill time in the episode.
Well, so the reason that they did that was because they went through the transwarp portal, so they were ahead of everybody. The Romulans left before Starfleet was made aware of going to this destination. So you did have the Romulan fleet did have a head start, and I think it was only about it was several minutes of a head start, and you had a crash bore cube, some flowers, and this little the La Serenas and La Serena, and you had to find a way to hold out, to stall, to give Starfleet enough time to arrive. They were just simply behind, so they had to throw in whatever they could think of. It was like, okay, Starfleet is behind by 10 minutes. We have to find a way to survive for 10 minutes to stall the Romulans somehow, or delay them until Starfleet gets here.
In universe, I agree with you. I'm just questioning the production. Why did we need that scene?
Okay.
You can say Starfleet's on their way, something held them up, but not to the point where maybe you expect them to come in at a time and then they don't, and then it's like only a couple seconds difference. But it just seemed like irrelevant. It seemed irrelevant, like to add it into the story of like, oh, we're going to show exactly how OP this entire device is, and we're going to say it can do this and this and this.
Yeah.
It was just seemed unnecessary, and it felt really lazy. So
Okay.
Yeah.
and I get in character and in like the story why the characters did it, because of the time that they were under and what they had to do. But from a writing perspective, I'm just really curious as to why they left that in and why they wrote it the way they did. Very disjointed and unorganized to me. That's just how I feel.
I want one of these scepters for cosplay.
What?
If you're listening to us, there's in the scene where our heroes show up in Synthville, and the muscle-bound twins block them with these two blue scepters. These blue scepters look beautiful. I love them. I want one. They check their bags,
I can't really
make sure they don't
see
have
the
any
whole
weapons.
thing. They're like little they're like swords, but not. I don't think they're sharp. They're just like a
I saw them like if you've seen Stargate, the
Yes,
staff weapons that open up to fire energy bolts. That's how I saw these things.
staff with a bonus to crit.
Girardi uses Saga's other eye to get him out of his cell and get back to La Serena. Like with every single Star Trek episode where they use somebody's credentials to do a hack like this, why are those credentials still in the system? Saga's dead. She's offline. The system should know that she is incapable of opening this door.
Okay.
Maybe it's. Go ahead, Big J.
This is my time to shine. So
I'm all ears.
here we go. You know that my background is in IT, right?
Oh yeah.
I cannot tell you.
What?
I cannot tell you how many Active Directories I have looked at that are full of employees who are no longer there.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Got married and didn't have their names changed in the directory, still have permissions on these folders and whatnot. So that whole part of taking of credentials and using them, completely plausible, completely, because I see it. I see it all the time. Now that's not a good practice. We all know that, but we have every single, you can talk to any guy that's touched Active Directory and they will tell you, yeah, I have at least 10 times have seen people in there that, had permissions on the HR folder and they were let go a year ago, or something or whatever. Wait, Bob is in there. He passed away 10 years ago. They take him out of there. Okay, well, let me just disable him and move him to this container. So yeah.
Yep.
I think also it could have also been, it could have been like she was in and she wasn't supposed to be there, her credentials, or it could just be like you have to be a synth to get in.
They
it just
all have
like
the same eye.
They have the no, they all have the same like they
all have the same key fob.
It's the same, yeah. It's like that. It's like the same signal that it's a synth. It doesn't necessarily have to be a specific person's signal. It's a group. It's their group. They have the same technology, so it could also be that. That's how I actually took it. Was like, it's the gatekeeper. You have to be a synth. It doesn't matter who you are because, the AI Soong guy, Alton Indigo, right? He was in there, and he wasn't. Well, no, he was in the workshop. He wasn't in Picard's. Never mind.
Right.
Never mind.
We don't see him.
I thought it was so funny how Picard was like just sleeping when she came in. They could have had him doing any number of things, but he was napping, and I thought that was so funny. I think he was also probably feeling super exhausted and resting because he knew what was like going to be coming, and he obviously during the battle was really drained and exhausted, so maybe he was just like taking a breather. So
you kind of get to a point where it's like, I'm just going to take a nap.
Why not?
Yeah,
Q showed up right before Girardi went in there and was like, Jean-Luc, I think you should take a nap. The future is going to get a little rough from here on out.
Wouldn't that have been great if we saw like Q come and he kind of maybe knew what was going to happen, and so he came and said goodbye or something.
Right.
Not to get too sad, but anyway, Girardi's super happy. She's like, I'm busting you out and getting you out of here.
Jailbreak when you see one?
Yeah. Star Trek 5 reference.
Yep.
Soong's golem completes, and that's when he also gets the memory restoration on Saga, and he can see that Sutra is the one who killed Saga. Who failed to really like permanently delete Saga's memory, so this couldn't be recovered by the cyberneticist on site.
Well,
I blame Sutra for this.
I mean, again, you can hand me a drive and say, "Hey, all my stuff got deleted," and there will be things that can be done. To a
Yeah, I
degree.
suppose I just wouldn't hand you the drive. I'd be like, here's my PC. Can you fix the hard drive? And you'd be like, there's no hard drive. And I'd be like, well, we found the problem. Let's get a new hard drive.
well, would you
Never
look at
have to
that?
worry. Look at this Romulan guy. He stabbed her in the eye and then he ripped out her brain. What a horrible dude. That's
Also, like, was he just looking through her memories?
he had probably done like a memory restoration and then he
Mhm.
just played back the last file.
Yes.
And this was what it was.
Well, it was
So he was
definitely a crime.
skeptical of Sutra then.
That's what
Already.
I'd like to believe.
I think
I'd
it was
like
just
to
it was a
see that.
crime. He just needs to know. I mean, he's got a dead synth with this, whatever, poked in her eye. He's definitely he's not going to not look at what happened.
I'm wondering, like, really, would the hummingbird have done that much damage?
I'm over here
To kill
like,
her?
man, Lily should have just shot Data in the eye in 2063. He'd be dead.
Right. You know how hard it is to hit someone in the eye when they're moving.
Mm-hmm.
So he discovers that Sutra's complicit and it's bad. And our heroes show up. We're supposed to be turning in Narek for a crime, but no one's escorting them, and they just have freedom to walk in.
Look at the screenshot if you're watching on YouTube. Narek is like squatting.
Yeah,
Look how funny he looks. He's like, okay, guys, we're being super. We're trying to hack, and Rios is like, just fucking walk, dude.
Yeah,
Like, that's so funny to me. That's like that's pure gold.
crazy Romulan training. So this beacon's almost done, and they're like, "How do we get there?" And Alton's like, "Hey, you know what? Sutra killed my daughter. I got you."
Mhm.
And we go back to La Serena, which, again, I have to say, we just saw a scene where this guy who killed Saga is allowed back on the base with his friends. They're all organics. We're about to call the people who hate organics. We're going to let these people walk around. And oh, by the way, this 94-year-old guy and his doctor friend just got to leave. No questions asked. And now they're back on La Serena.
They snuck out somehow. I don't know how they snuck out. She said they were distracted with something, and I can't for the life of me remember what they might have been distracted with. But somehow she walks her way through the desert to get to the ship again.
Yeah, there's a really good conversation that happens here about, Picard relating to the synths and saying, why they're doing what they're doing. And he says, fear is an incompetent teacher. And that's just basically how the synths have been operating.
Mhm.
And I kind of appreciated that moment that Picard has with her.
Think about this. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just like, you mentioned the synths operating with fear, and I'm like, well, how old are they? You can program something to be an adult, but it's still only going to be 2 years old, 3
Yeah.
years old. So they're really kind of like they're probably not toddler, like emotionally wise, and some of them are probably a lot older than 3, like physically 3 years old. I know that we said 37 months for Soji, like something like that. So, but they're probably operating on, like, they're still kids, or they're like preteens, like in terms of how long they've been around. So I'm sure they're like, oh, well, if everyone hates us, so we're just gonna kill everybody because you don't like me. Like, I mean, I get it's a defensive thing, but they don't try to work it out. They just take the way that's going to keep them safe, even if it's at the expense of everyone else.
Well, they may have
So-
been constructed, let's just say 3 years ago. They may have been
Mhm.
constructed 3 years ago, but I don't think that we're supposed to think that they're not any more intelligent than an adult. It's not like their physical bodies were constructed a few years ago, but they didn't not have the mind of an adult, because the thing we have to remember is every one of these synth has a piece of data that they've all been created from a neuron from his positronic matrix. Well, from B4s, from B4s, but Data's memory was copy and pasted there. So you've got all these synth that are capable of you can put that that consciousness there to where, oh crap, how am I trying to say it? Data was probably more at the beginning of what you're describing, more childlike, because we don't know what kind of foundation he started with. Nooney and Soong may have just given him like the basic out of the box like default settings, and then shit's time to go, the crystalline entity is coming, and then that's it. And then Data really spends his years growing up, having to learn all these things and be more of a quote unquote child. But with these synth, they are starting with a more robust template of settings and experiences.
I think that like can go either way. So if they do say they do have all of Data's like learnings and his maturity that he gained until the end of Nemesis, why aren't they acting more like Data in that case?
Because they have a choice. Because they have a choice.
Well, I mean, Data at least took the time to like reason things out and tried to like understand. And he didn't ever just jump into they're all gonna kill us. The Federation's gonna kill us. Like he would always try and work things out. But so say they do have his learnings and his experiences there. That's how I see it, is they're not using that. They're not acting like Data would. And say they don't have it. Well, in that case, really they're starting from not scratch. In my opinion, if it's the other way, it's like kind of like having kids. You're passing your genetics on, and really nothing else. You're not passing on experiences. You may understand. We know that Soji knew that Data loved Picard, so it might be like a bridge between them, kind of.
Yes.
But they're not getting the exact lessons from Data. They're not getting nothing from Data. They're getting something in the middle.
Yes.
In which case, I still think Picard is giving them more understanding as a grown adult than they are giving him. So I do think their immaturity is still below at least Picard's.
Yes.
I would agree with that.
So that's kind of, I guess, where my head was. But not necessarily that they're children, but that they haven't spent any time outside of the Scientology compound to really understand to understand how the universe works. They all have been on this insulated planet. So how can you possibly have comprehension and wisdom if you haven't left like Picard has? That's, I guess, kind of what I was saying.
And you're kind of echoing what Picard says in this moment here, is he's like, they have so much that they already have, but they're also quite like children. And how do you teach children? By example.
Oh, yeah.
How do you teach children the quality of life? By example. And that's why I thought that was actually really cool. Later on, he calls Soji, and he's like, "I'm prepared to give you something, my life." And,
a present.
that was that's a ballsy move.
And you don't fucking deserve it, Soji. I'm not gonna lie. I'll just be honest with you. He deserve a lot better than giving it up for you.
So we flash from Picard flying off in Rios's ship after not knowing how to fly a ship. And we get to the Kool-Aid meeting on the planet where all of the synths are just standing there.
The Kool-Aid meeting.
And Mitra and Soji are constructing the beacon. And Alton shows up and he's like, "I already know what you did to Saga, so we're going to have words." And we have words. And he pulls out this, I don't know, it looks like a little capacitor. For
looks like a fuse that
you plug. Yeah, exactly. And he just turns off. It turns off Sutra. She's done.
Little itty bitty EMP.
Can I go back just a minute to give you a pet peeve of mine?
Sure.
What?
This is my pet peeve of Star Trek, and you don't have to go back in the slides. I'll just describe it. It was when you were talking about Picard suddenly flying this ship, and it's a 3-dimensional, display and controls. This bothers me to no end with Star Trek. Dag, if I were to go sit in your car, I am screwed trying to figure out how to turn on the lights or the windshield wipers, much less get get things going. Now you're telling me that he can I'm looking for the emergency brake release. Like where the hell is it? It can be in one of 4 different places. So you're telling me that he's going to just hop in this thing after briefly seeing it operated and just fly it, just pilot it. And that's just this trope in Star Trek, is anyone can hop into anything.
Like Star Wars.
Yes. And just start flying or whatever. I just don't. That bothers me. Maybe
it would have
it's
been
just
cool
me.
if we saw an emergency piloting hologram.
That place was full of holograms a moment ago. Where the
The
hell are
navigation
they?
hologram.
The
I mean,
what?
The navigation hologram.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did we
Like
suddenly
I'm sure the
forget?
navigation hologram could have a little subroutine where he knows how to pilot the fucking
Enoch.
ship.
ENH.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I completely agree. I think Picard piloting it, whatever.
The
Yeah.
only thing I
Cool.
have to say, and again, I mean, as much of the issues that I have with this episode, I don't think it's beyond an admiral of Starfleet to observe over the course of 3 weeks maybe 2 days, how Rios pilots his ship and learn how to do that. It's a little bit of a stretch, but it's not in my top 10 of bugs.
I'm sure Rios is like, it's an art form.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Sorry
It's
about the
not
gripe.
that
with you.
easy.
And
That's just my
here's
gripe.
another, and going on with your grind in the scene where Alton zaps Sutra,
Mhm.
you're an android, faster reflexes, quicker, better, faster, stronger, and you let this old man drop a wand on you. Like, why didn't you just punch him in the chest as soon as you saw, that his eyes and his pulse and all that stuff that you can metric? Because she told Girardi, I'll know if you're lying.
I think she might have interpreted it as like maybe not deceit, but maybe anger from him
Mhm.
because he was very upset.
suppose.
Like I think they're kind of heightened the same like physiological, like maybe she hasn't been around enough humans to know how to nuance like change like the difference between I'm gonna fucking kill you or we don't know if she's dead. I assume she's dead. He basically EMP'd her is what
Yes.
I'm seeing, which will render her ineffective. If I
Well,
know how
and-
that technology is supposed to
Mhm.
work, which I think I do. So
One bit of trivia that's not included in the formal trivia for this episode of BTP. The last time that we saw somebody remotely turn off an android was Star Trek Insurrection when Worf deactivated Data.
Yeah, with the
Um,
tricorder
Yep.
turning right off.
So
And I understand Watney's problem with this is how could Soong have gotten the drop on her to be able to swing his arm out with this thing without her reacting in time.
swatting away.
Right, swat away or something. And it's supposed to be just one of those things that, okay, so if you have a problem with that, then wait until you get to what I'm sure Dag is going to have a slide on. But this is just one of those things that you just have to not think about it. Just don't think about it. Just
Big
let it
J, can I
happen.
tell you I've been doing that the whole fucking season? Do you know why I'm still in this
You know-
chair? Because
my
I love
gosh.
both of you and because I love the spirit of Star Trek. I don't
Yes.
like Picard.
Yeah.
I mean, I should hope that's obvious. I'm trying not to be mean, but I
I
don't like the
didn't-
show.
I
So
didn't want to be in
I've been
that
doing it the
mindset.
whole season.
I know you have, and I've appreciated it because criticism helps ground me. But for 9 episodes, I was stretching and stretching and stretching and being like, okay. And this episode gave me 0 fulfillment of my expectations.
And
Except
ask for a lot in
mine.
return.
And it asked for
They
a lot in
ask a
return.
lot
Like
of-
we
for mine,
have, I
yes.
have negative Like I have debt with this episode. Um,
This episode
we'll get to a lot of that. Like once I start reading my notes about some stuff here, because there's some stuff that happens at the end of this episode that I absolutely lost my shit over, and we'll talk about that.
Okay.
Yeah, we will, and I'm sure I'll kind of agree with you
Mhm.
on some of those things. So
Alton says a nice thing here. He tells Sutra, "You're no better than we are,"
Very poignant.
which is also, in my opinion, just based on the things that I've been reading, this is a call out to a lot of the fans who've been hating on Picard, saying that the Federation's a utopia and this isn't right. And Alton, not a Federation hero, not a Starfleet guy, who's had a completely different experience as a human being in this universe.
Mm-hmm.
And his experience is very much humans are deceitful people, and it just sort of reinforces the idea that the lens through which we watched Star Trek: The Next Generation was very much a pro-Starfleet kind of agenda. We were fortunate that we had Picard and Riker and these bastions of humanity and humane treatment to walk us through those episodes. But there's a reason why for every Picard there is, I'm going to use a Voyager reference here, there's a ransom who's willing to exploit life to get what they want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely agree. I think that that's a great point, and it actually makes me think now. So like I've always been kind of seeing comparisons here to like pre 9/11 USA is anything before Picard or anything before the synth bombing.
Mm-hmm.
The synth bombing is 9/11. And after that, you have the synths versus Starfleet / Federation.
Yes.
And sure, the synths are said to have bombed Mars and killed all of those people. But the retaliation of the Federation, you're no better than we are. I mean, honestly, like we went over and killed hundreds of thousands of people in the Middle East because of the attack that was done by radicals. So you have to think like there is definitely comparisons there on the attack on our home ground and then our retaliation and the idealized version of Starfleet that people have that's pre-synth attack, pro-Starfleet, pre-9/11. It all kind of like ties in together, I think.
On Track podcast, making it real.
Yeah, I mean, they're clearly very much telling a story of the administrations of Starfleet throughout the most recent years after like an event that happened in
14
reality.
years ago.
Yeah, so it's like there's absolutely parallels that are being drawn, and I think that you're no better than we are may have been a call out to those fans, yes, who were like, I'm pre-Starfleet.
Where's my utopian Federation?
Right. I think that's been the problem throughout Discovery, especially throughout Picard, is I want my utopian Federation. I want my Paradise Earth, Paradise Federation. And really, how long is that supposed to last? And how interesting is that from a storytelling perspective? So we're supposed to just have this this show, this season, and have everything be perfect. This perfect idolized Federation and Starfleet. Is that exciting writing? I don't think so. And for me, I'm glad that they are where they were, because there has to be something there. And I think that we're holding on to, or some of us are holding on to, that vision that Gene Roddenberry had, where we don't want any conflict. We want to go from planet to planet exploring this, that, and other. And I will be perfectly honest with you. I love TNG. The Next Generation was great. I feel like I practically grew up with it. Would I have wanted a season 8 of TNG, basically that formula for this series? No. Things change, and things have to change. Mm-hmm. I do not I do not think that the solution to Star Trek Picard would have been to have 10 episodic one-offs that I believe a very vocal minority is wanting, or that's their preference.
Mm-hmm.
To me, for all its flaws, I think that there's a lot more you can get out of the story when you have this event that happened and made people paranoid and et cetera, et cetera. It's not going to be, Earth and the Federation is not always going to be the gates to heaven. And if you didn't like this, well, then you're going to continue hating Discovery, because in season 3, they're in the future and the Federation looks like it's pretty much collapsed. So you're not going to get your paradise
for that.
Right. You're not going to get your paradise then either, guys. So sorry.
Yeah, for sure. And I definitely think, just to, not to go on and on about the parallels, but pre 9/11, things were pretty fucking good.
Sure. Yeah.
We had a lot of good things going on. Sure, there were issues in the world. I'm sure the Fenris Rangers would have existed before the synth attacks and everything. And there were still problems, but then that happened and kind of changed the mental landscape of everybody, and the zeitgeist changed. And that is not just something that can happen in stories in Star Trek Picard.
Yeah.
Where you have a utopia and then Mars is attacked and then paranoia sets in and there's retaliation and then there's constant wars and you're going to exterminate us. That is something that happened in reality. So, sure, you can go back and watch the utopia if you want to relive that, but that's not really how reality is. And maybe you're looking to Star Trek to be hopeful.
Maybe.
In which case, I think Picard is still doing that. It's still doing that.
There's a tweet that I'm going to quote towards the end of this episode that really helped me get through my frustration with this episode, and I'll talk about that. Like I said, saving all the good stuff for the end.
Okay.
But I don't even know where I was going with that. But yeah, I think you're right. I think that the element of hope is kept alive in Jean-Luc Picard, and you start the show at the beginning with a Picard that the naysayers were saying he doesn't know what's going on. How can he be so naive to what's going on? It's he's spent 14 years on his chateau, on his vineyard, clinging on to a hope that deceived him. He got kicked out of Starfleet, trying to do the right thing, and Dodge comes along with this mission that allows him to bring hope to people. And I think he does that in this episode. I think he succeeds in that message of bringing hope to people after living with hopelessness and possibly betrayal for a really long time. The core message, if I were to say that was the core message of Star Trek Picard, I would agree with it. A lot of people won't. A lot of people won't think that's the core message.
I think there is a fair amount of consideration and critique that we should listen to. There are definitely people who are disappointed, who are actually Trek fans, who are not complete assholes. And I definitely think we could have critique and discussion about the show. But then there are a certain group of people who just hate minorities and hate representation. And I'm not talking to those people. I'm not on your side. And we're as a group, we just choose to ignore that kind of thing. So you can say that you have good intentions, but don't be too obvious.
What's worse is there are people out there who only care about likes, shares, retweets, upvotes, whatever social media site they're on. Getting that attention is what they care about. They're not even the people who dislike diversity and that stuff. These are just the people who say, hey, if I pretend like I hate Discovery for the reasons the racists say, I'll get likes, shares, and retweets and attention.
Oh yeah, all PR is good PR.
And And I don't know why, but I feel like that attitude towards it, just the consumption of outrage, the ingenuine consumption of outrage, like you don't even genuinely feel this way, you're just using it to get ahead on your own. That's almost more insidious than the people who are in your face about not appreciating the diversity that Discovery and Picard had to offer there.
Yeah, it's a little more social engineering for sure.
A little bit.
So yeah, I think a little sidebar there, but
Yeah.
just to let you guys know listening.
I'll
debate with you, but I'm not gonna stand for assholes. So
I was aggravated by this scene.
what scene?
The fight scene right here. Do you guys
okay,
want to guess?
BigJ, what fight scene? Because some people are just listening.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, so basically, Raffi does the whistle. Rios and Narek jump down from nowhere. Elnor comes up, and basically there's just this whole brouhaha where 2 Romulans and a human get the drop on these synth, and the Narek and Elnor are basically holding their own in a hand-to-hand fight with synth. Now, excuse me?
Mm-hmm.
What? Okay, so now suddenly, we have always seen Data, other androids, synth. There is nobody. I think we're supposed to understand that nobody of similar size, if it was huge rock giant, no. But we're talking any similar size biped cannot compete against an android in hand-to-hand combat. Nowhere close. But suddenly these guys are dropping in and dropping these synth like bad habits.
Yeah.
And that just
the plot that's what the writers do. They use things they've established when it suits the writing, not because it makes sense because it's been established, but because it suits that moment and what needs to happen. There's no consistency between many things. There's no consistency, and it's like the frustration you're feeling. That has been happening throughout this series so far, and I'm like, oh, so all of a sudden you can just deck a synth and you couldn't do that today. Like it just doesn't fucking make sense. It just is only when it suits the writers. So just don't treat the audience stupid. Let them figure shit out. Do things the way that you wrote them.
Well, you know what I just thought of? Actually, I just thought of something. So the synth now are they're very strong, very fast, et cetera, but their outer shell is based more on organic than lore and data in B4, where basically okay, so you remember in TNG the Klingon that just wanted to play drinking games with Data, headbutted him, threw himself back. Okay, so tell me if I'm wrong, but I think what we're supposed to take away from this generation of synth is that is less likely to happen, that these bodies are still durable, don't get me wrong, but they're not those super alloys.
They can't pull up a floor and go through the floor. They can't slam their fist on a table and bend it. Those are things Soji has done.
And to add to that, Dodge took out 2 Romulan strike teams on her own with guns.
Right, but no, what I'm saying is that yes, it's like Superman. It's like Superman. He is super strong, but he's not super heavy. You could throw him, technically. You can get the drop on him and do that. There's this.
Okay, but
let me just give an example real quick.
Okay.
There's this animated movie, Superman and Batman thing, and Batman's interrogating this guy at this nightclub or something, and Superman comes down, kind of walks up behind him, puts his his hand on Batman's arm. It's like, okay, that's enough. So Batman just quickly turns, throws, hip tosses him, throws Superman across the room, breaks a table, and then Superman gets up and like shoulder checks him into a wall. And okay, yes, that is very plausible. You could do that. If you got the drop on him, you could do that. And I think with the synth, you get the drop on him. Okay, you can exert some physical damage. However, you're not going to last if that synth has enough time to react. Just like Batman.
So they're
would have
all
broke.
about dexterity and not necessarily strength. Is that your theory?
No, they've got strength. All I'm saying is, I'm just saying that
It has to be focused. It's not like data just like
Right.
bouncing off.
It has to be.
Okay, I
it
can
has
get
to be
that. I can
focused.
get behind that.
And you can if you got a good fist, you can hit the synth and not break every bone in your hand, as opposed to if you had tried to do something like that to what lore and data were made out of, that would not have gone well. So it's like there's okay, I can kind of see it, but I'm not happy. I mean,
The series is making me reach again.
yeah, it made
It's making the audience do the mental gymnastics
Yes.
to make things make sense. It's not that the writers are taking the time to lay things out.
Yeah,
It just feels very rushed and like we're just gonna make this happen. Fuck it. We don't even have to talk about it
yeah.
in the show.
they could have just as easily in this whole scene here. They could have just as easily had every single synth react superhumanly fast and subdue all of the humans in this scene, and it would not change the outcome of this episode.
Yeah, they just seem like fucking zombies, dude. Like
just
they're
sit
not
there and watch,
actually
like,
doing
what?
anything.
They're not doing anything.
They just Soji's the only
Rios-
one who has any life in her face. The rest of them look like they're dead in the eyes.
Right. In this scene, like let's play this out. Instead of the way it happened, in this scene, Elnor punches the dude behind him. The brother turns around and decks Elnor, knocks him out. Narek jumps down. I don't know how many stories that leap was, but as soon as they see a blur, they're dodging him. They knock him out. He's decked. They see Rios jump over a rail. They take him hostage and they grab the Whistler. All four of them are taken out. Alton's an old man. He can't do anything except turn them off.
Mhm.
And the four of them sit there in hostage, waiting for Picard for his plea to get through to Soji to turn off this beacon. We'd have a little more urgency on the planet, and a lot. I personally would have a feeling of more life on the line if we already knew that these synths here and now were prepared to kill Picard's new crew, instead of waiting for Synthulu to show up and do it for them. That would have added a little more suspense for me. Didn't happen that way. Fine.
In the same vein. Go ahead.
No, I was blabbering.
Yeah, no, I get I do that too. I'm just like in the same vein because they waited for something else to happen. It kind of shows you that like they are just like, come and save us, synths, quick. This is the end all be all solve. Like this will solve all the problem. This will fix it. It's like they almost don't want to act because they're just waiting for something else to save them. But I think, yeah, well, I also think that you're right that it would have given more gravitas to the scene, but I digress. This is what we have. This is canon.
Right.
This shit is fucking canon. So we have to deal with it.
If we had done it my way, it would have shown that these synths are not to be trifled with. They never were. They wanted to solve a problem about the synth ban and why it happened. And they could subdue any of us at any time themselves. They can't be duped by a soccer ball and two Romulans and a whistle. Speaking of, like, all of those moves were telegraphed from a fighting perspective.
What does you mean? I don't know what that means.
So when you're telegraphing in a fight, it's like instead of just looking your opponent in the eye, it is like looking where you're going to hit them, and then your arms give a tell about what you're going to do. And people who are really good fighters can read that body language, and they can go, he's going to try to punch me in the shoulder, so I'm going to be ready to react. Or he's going to use this hand to do this thing. So they call that telegraphing your punches or your kicks.
Okay.
I don't get in a lot of fights. That's how I understand it. So if you are a fighter and you're listening to this episode, feel free to chime in and let me know where I'm wrong. But subtly, that's basically
I
what
I
telegraphing
kickbox,
is.
but it's like most of the time I'm hitting a bag, but I do get on the combo pads and like spar. So I guess I'm just not good enough yet to be able to do that. Need
It's
to
okay.
practice more. Just gotta
Lots of
get out of
practice.
quarantine.
Lots of practice. Another establishing shot, which is cool. La Serena flying into space with
Very
Picard.
pretty.
Very nice. He's trying to fly, and she's asking questions, and she's like, "Are you not responding to build suspense?" And he's like, "I'm trying to fly. I haven't done it in a long time. I'll appreciate it if you give me a break here."
I'm trying not to kill
It's
us.
Wow, that's cool. And I just realized there's a trivia card that I left out, so we'll talk about it now. But Jay or Watney, do you remember the TNG episode where we see the last time Picard pilots a ship?
No.
Yes.
What is it, Jay?
was Samaritan Snare, season 3. The Enterprise got caught in this energy draining, asteroid fieldish looking thing, and anything they tried to do to get the engines online or any kind of power was just sucked right out. And they finally figured out that they need to do like quick little bursts of air, different thrusters on the sides of the ship. And Picard relieved Wesley Crusher from the helm and said, I got this. So Picard took the seat and got the Enterprise out of that trap.
Yep, he piloted the Enterprise close enough to an asteroid that the gravity of the asteroid would give them enough thrust to get out of that field.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's good news and bad news. That episode was not Samaritan Snare; it was Booby Trap.
Oh, that's right, Booby Trap. I always get those two.
Samaritan Snare was the one where the Packlets kidnapped Geordi.
Okay, you're right.
Okay,
I always get those two mixed up somehow, but
that's why I'm the trivia master.
Thank you.
I do like Girardi's line here about one impossible thing at a time. That's what Raffi and Picard had as a thing between them. That's also established in the book that I mentioned previously, where when they're trying to do the Romulan evacuation, there's 800,000 logistics that have to be perfectly aligned to make this happen. And Picard's overwhelmed, and Raffi's overwhelmed, and everybody's overwhelmed. And Raffi and Picard are basically like one impossible thing at a time. That's how we make sense of it. That's how we don't go nuts. So I thought it was cool that they brought it here too. Back on the planet, the synths finally get cues to action. They take down Narek. They can't stop Soji from activating this beacon. Even Rios pops his soccer ball and throws one of these explosives. Soji catches it without even looking at it. Looking back at the choreography for all those fights and why none of those droids could react fast enough.
The opposite of lore.
And she chucks
Not
it
lore.
into...
What's the fucking girl's name?
Sutra?
No, the girl, the original Data's daughter.
Lol.
Oh,
TNG.
lol. Right.
Like
Wow.
lol.
Totally lifts her arm up.
That's
3
that's
seconds
such
after
a
the ball
great
impacts.
little trivia tidbit. You're amazing. Lol lifts her hand up after the bomb goes off. Soji just catches it, chucks it into the air. No, that was a really good catch there. Really good catch. It's even the same. I think it's the same hand. I don't know.
It is.
It is.
I just
the
saw
same
that.
hand.
So that's great.
Great throwback.
And Soji is able to continue completing the construction of this beacon. Meanwhile, Narissa is on
Looking
the board
so
ship.
good.
She is trying to get the weapons online to target La Serena to blow it out of the water. I'm not sure why she chose to target La Serena and not the beacon itself, which is going to save everybody. But okay, that's fine. And we get our combat scene that I've reduced to a single slide for our video audience.
That was a good fight.
Seven shows up, disarms her, and she's like, "I'm unarmed." And Seven's like, "Yeah, I doubt that." Pulls her daggers out, drops those off the side too. They get into a fight, and Nerissa's like, "Why did you persist? Why didn't you put a gun to your head?" And Seven said, "I still had something left to do." She kicks Nerissa over the side and says, "For Hugh, sorry, Watney, Nerissa is probably at the bottom of that pit getting assimilated by the boat."
It's fine. We got the fight scene, which was super hot.
It was
So
hot.
I'll deal with it. I mean, we didn't see her die.
Oh, for
It's
the
true.
love of Pete. This isn't Mace
we saw
Windu
her-
gets shot out of a 2,000-story window. Well, but we didn't see him hit the ground, so he's still alive. No, you don't have to see
the
splatter.
Emperor
She's
lived.
dead.
But who lived?
The Emperor.
So
Okay.
So yeah, like there's so much about the scene that I loved. Like these two badass chicks
Yeah.
with their own motivations. They both have kind of altruistic motives. One just involves exterminating people on a planet. For
big
the
deal.
betterment of the rest of the galaxy, which is a hard thing to debate. If you're into the logic of the needs of the many over the needs of the few, Nerissa is taking a direct path to that conclusion. Whereas Seven and her group and Picard and that side is like crossing their fingers and hoping things work out. Hoping that Picard, has enough weight as a person, even though Soji doesn't really understand how cool Picard is or where he came from or anything about him, to have it have meaning to her. It has meaning to the audience when he says he sacrifices his life. Anyway, I'm way off topic, but yeah, super cool scene. I love Nerissa. I'm really sad that she's gone. She was definitely the most interesting of both of the. Are they twins?
I was hoping they
Mm,
might be. I
yeah.
don't know. We don't even know her real name. Nerissa is what O called her. She was a Starfleet officer in disguise in episode 1 or 2.
Okay, but
and that was
we never
that.
fucking hear Narek called her Ion. That shit doesn't ever come up again.
No, it doesn't.
Well, it's
So
not
why does
supposed
it
to.
fucking matter what her other name is? Because no one ever calls her that. She might as well forget it. This stuff's so stupid.
Well, I was thinking more along the lines of, was Nerissa her human cover or was Nerissa her actual name? Because I don't think they ever actually say her name.
They just call her Lieutenant.
Mhm.
Commodore O just calls her Lieutenant.
Right. Can I just sidebar just real quick, because Watney, you mentioned part of the old Vulcan proverb of the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few.
Mm-hmm.
So there was
Did I get it wrong?
No, you got it right. It just reminded me
Okay.
of this funny meme that I saw the other day. So it's from that scene in Star Trek IV when the Klingon ambassador is arguing his case for the apprehension of Kirk over the deaths of that Klingon crew, that bird of prey, and Sarah comes in, to challenge them, and so it's a 2-panel meme. The first part of it is that the part of the scene where you're kind of over Sarek's shoulder, and the Klingon says, "Vulcans are the intellectual puppets of the Federation." And then the next panel of this thing was then over the Klingon shoulder with Sarek standing there, but the caption was, "Oh yeah, well, your mama's so fat that she outweighs the needs of the many."
That's such a Big J joke.
Sarek,
That is such a Big J joke.
Sarek with the
Like,
burns.
The burn.
Damn.
You got to see it. I think you have to see
you
it.
got him. You got him.
I'm gonna bring it back.
Okay.
I was really hoping that we were gonna get some payoff from when Narissa was saying to Ramda that I would have been a better Borg than you, in this scene, I was really hoping Seven was just gonna like choke her out and then just like do nanoprobes, like zap. And I'm just gonna start assimilating you while you ride on the ground, and I'm gonna disable this thing.
She said
and you're
she'd
gonna
be
ride on the
more.
ground. What's that?
She called her Borg Queen Annika.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
like,
Yeah.
you hoe.
Yeah. There was a lot of annoyance there.
She's not gonna like that. She's not gonna like that, you fucker. Damn.
And
Got her
it's-
ass.
I think that just would have been more fulfilling for me, just seeing Narissa writhe with nanoprobes, knowing that she absolutely detests what she's about to become and she can't stop it.
What did she a half meat?
Half
What did they-
beast? I don't remember.
It was
the
a half
line
meat. I actually
specifically.
remember watching with subtitles, and it
Oh,
was
it
like
was terrible. It was a really
Also,
mean
can I
thing.
just say this is like way back towards like the start of when we started talking, but you know how like Narek and Rafi and Rios and Elnor are all sitting around a campfire?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Why are they sitting around a campfire? The ship is right fucking there.
Row, row, row your boat
Gently down the stream.
It's a Star Trek 5 reference.
Well,
I don't know.
I
Why
just
not?
thought
Why
like
don't- get some fresh
this-
air? I mean,
But you know what? You want to take it back that far? Narek says something here that's a throwaway line that means crazy amounts of stuff. He says, long ago, before our ancestors even came to Vulcan.
yeah, I
He
heard
says that in this scene. Who the hell is he talking about?
what?
The Vulcans were born on Vulcan. The previous understanding was that the Vulcans and everybody were
Came
born on
to
Vulcan.
or came
and
from Vulcan?
Came from.
Came to.
Right, he said they came to.
Before our ancestors came to Vulcan or arrived on Vulcan. He says that. And that line alone undermines the entire understanding of Vulcan Romulan schism. The assumption is that Vulcan society was just so warlike that when this logic dude came around, logic spread like a cult, and the warlike members said, well, we're out, and they bailed, and they became the Romulans. But they started on Vulcan. So when he says our ancestors even came to Vulcan, this line that has no fulfillment in this episode whatsoever, that doesn't really jibe with understanding of canon, is there. And it does it mean something, or were the writers just meh?
I think
I'm
I
gonna go
need
with
to
the writers.
rewatch.
I think the writers were meh.
You think they just didn't fucking know? Because
I just think they like a lot of the scenes in this episode, I think it was just filler.
The line sounded cool. Let's go to the next slide.
oh yeah, shit, you're very fucking right. I'm rewatching it. Long ago, before our ancestors arrived on Vulcan.
Mhm.
Yeah, and he's talking about the devastation or whatever they called it, the admonition, whenever that happened. But I'm just like, why? No, don't do this to me. I have been
No. Is he talking about the race that like was the Vulcans and Romulans? Did they not? They had to originate on Vulcan,
right,
like the indigenous Vulcans.
right.
that's what I'm
So
saying.
he came to Vulcan.
The
So
people
weird.
that were known as I don't know. That's a
I don't
whole
want to
other thing.
throw the podcast into a
Yeah.
discussion of what this means. It's just a
No,
line.
this is we're fucking
podcast.
talking. It's fine. It's like I'm so confused. That's just another red flag.
Mhm.
Like it's that, or they didn't do a good job explaining that they knew like, actually how it happened. So is this actually canon?
It could be an unreliable narrator thing.
It happened on screen. It's canon.
What you think Narek doesn't know that Romulans split from Vulcans? I thought that was like common knowledge.
If they had said long before our ancestors came to Romulus, I wouldn't even be talking about it. But they said
Okay.
long before our ancestors came to Vulcan, and now I have to like, whew, Michael Chabon, if somehow through some miracle you're listening to this podcast, please help us. And in the digital release of Picard, make that apparent.
And also, if you are listening, fuck you.
I don't disagree.
Let's move on, shall we?
All right. So the Romulan fleet arrives.
Mm-hmm.
The Romulan fleet arrives. These ships are imposing.
They look
There's
badass.
cool angles of them over the planet, and
sterilize the planet.
she's just ready to nuke the planet from orbit. It's the only way to be sure.
Sterilization protocol
She- it
5.
just- It's like purification by fire. It was like that kind of shit. It was beautiful.
Yeah, it's very
I love it.
You know,
You can
and
see the ships from
the ground.
Damn.
Yeah. Yeah.
They must be a lot either huge or a lot lower than we thought they originally
Yeah.
were.
Which is neither. That's eye candy.
Yeah.
One of the sequences I like is when the fight actually starts. We see this Romulan plane, warbird there, and the Orchid is coming after it, and then this tentacle just swats it aside from the top to the bottom in the scene sequence. That if you're on the audio, I've got an image of the bird of prey in front of this Orchid, and in the next image, the Orchid tentacle just swats clean through the bird of prey, and the bird of prey explodes. And it's like, man, these Orchids, we need more of these.
They're either paper or they're badass. Which is it? They literally fried in orbit. Like just as they were descending.
Yeah.
I got the opinion that they were like actually safeguarding La Serena as it fell. Like I felt like that was how it was happening, but like I guess they're more substantial than we thought to be able to pull off something like that. I mean, that's like what the most recent or is it The Last Jedi where they cut the big old destroyer in half
With a warp jump.
with a warp jump.
That was The Last Jedi.
That was The Last Jedi.
Yeah, at the very end, the rebel ship warp jumps through the big destroyer, which destroys the other ship. So to think about, and of course the bird of prey isn't that big, but just the power it takes to do that is pretty substantial. So
yeah,
cool shot though.
Very
Definitely
interesting.
awesome.
And then we get the ultra creepy moment where Girardi's like, I need a neurooptronic interface, and she's holding the Ocarina of Time, and suddenly she has a neurooptronic interface, and this is what inspires our multiple incoming La Serenas after the Orchids are taken care of. And we already talked about that at the beginning.
Yes.
Yeah.
We could add to it.
You all know how I feel. I don't have anything else to say.
Just from a gifting opportunity, there's 4 sequences in this episode alone where we see multiples of stuff pop up. The Romulan fleet pops up, Girardi's face pops up, La Serena pops up, and then the Federation fleet pops up. And I just feel like all 4 of those moments could be gifted together in a way that would be like repost after repost after repost. But that's Picard makes one last plea and tells Soji, I'm prepared to give my life for your survival. Living up to the example that he mentioned before. This is how you teach people respect for life, is by example. A ton of La Serenas show up. The Romulan fleet engages them. I love the caption that I put on this thing.
I like it too.
The beacon goes live. The beacon is lit. Synthville calls for aid. And our Lord of the Rings fans will appreciate that. Just the image of the overhead moment where the beacon lights up and shoots this beam into space. And the next scene is, of course, and Starfleet will answer. They're not Rohan, but but there's a bunch of big ships here. And this, one of the cool things about this copy-paste fleet is that they all give me that destroyer feel.
Yes.
They mean business. It's really weird for me seeing this, watching all the episodes of Star Trek that I have watched. This ship is the first one that gives me I am a destroyer. That is my job. That is my purpose. And I will die doing it feeling. And a lot of people would say like, well, this copy-paste fleet was just easy to do from a production standpoint. But I did read a post that said, if you're going to have a war fleet, make every ship in that fleet the same. So they
Yes.
all have the same capabilities. And if one of those ships has to beam a ton of people from one ship to another, it's basically like interchangeable parts. You already know where everything is. You know how everything functions. You know what the specs are supposed to be. You don't have to worry about transferring your engineer from a Galaxy class to an Excelsior class, and suddenly they have to relearn an entire engineering schematic for their ship. So if these ships by chance happen to get into a major brawl, and one of them gets taken out, you can instantaneously beam over their crew to your crew and integrate them almost seamlessly in a combat situation.
It does make sense. It makes a lot of sense from a fleet perspective because you mass produce the one class of ship. You don't need a whole lot of variety. And I think having a whole lot of variety in wartime can be a little bit, okay, this is not wartime. Let me just backtrack. This isn't wartime, but I think from a shipyard production standpoint, Starfleet has there's been, and I get that Starfleet is like the main character of all the Star Trek shows, and they have all these different varieties of ships that you see on screen. Whereas in any era of Star Trek, whether it's the original series, TNG, Voyager, DS9, or whatever, you haven't seen, I don't think you've seen any alien race that had any more than 3 styles of ship. In TNG, the Romulans, you saw the Warbird primarily. There was, I believe, one time a shuttle. The Klingons, you have the Bird of Prey, you have the old Katinga, then they had the Vorcha, then the Negvar. Basically, and the Cardassians had their couple things. So every other race only has like the couple different variations, whereas then you get to Starfleet, and it's this hodgepodge assortment of all these different ships, all these different classes. That's the part that I think is unrealistic. In this scene right here, I was talking about this scene with a friend of mine, and he kind of expressed some disappointment that, well, every ship was the same one. I think there were a couple that were different. I believe there was a representation of maybe 2 different classes of ship, because I did see like a whole bunch all look like this one, and then a whole bunch all look like this, but they weren't the same as number 1 and number 2. At least that's kind of what I saw. I was okay with that, with them all being like that, for the reasons that Dag gave, was that it's a lot easier to produce. You have all these parts. You're not trying to supply parts, schematics, details of 8 unique classes of ship. So,
We need to know one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if one can get it done, do it.
Watney, did you get hyped when Starfleet showed up here, or were you just...
I don't think I've had a legitimate feeling
You're numb.
like during this entire series until the very end of this episode.
I was pumped when Starfleet showed up. I mean, look at this.
It was, sure, it was cool. It's like backup's here. How many times have we seen that in any type of media you've ever consumed? Backup is here. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I felt about it.
I love
if Starfleet doesn't show up to this, then they're like ass is grass. I mean, honestly, like if they don't show up, they're like the bad guys, because this huge fucking thing is coming out of this portal, and you're not going to be the main characters there when this happens. Like,
well, they show up here for a reason. They show up here to back up Picard's statement when he tells Soji, like, if we were here to destroy you, we would have joined the Romulans, but we're not going to let that happen.
the only good thing about it was Riker. The only cool thing about it was Riker. I'm not going to say that it wasn't good that they showed up, but Riker he looks really good.
He looks really good, and he has the bearing of a man who's been a captain for 20 years.
He's got that lean, like I'm doing.
The Riker lean.
He's got the Riker lean, but he's just so casual here. He's like, I'm going to blow you guys out of the water. You can't stop us.
Mm-hmm.
I have the most dangerous ship that's ever been created, except for that one ship that long time ago that we can't talk about that was hidden behind a moon. Oh wait, that was a different universe.
You're talking about the Kelvin timeline.
The Vengeance.
Yeah.
So I think Riker's whole thing was a reshoot. Did you guys read that?
It was?
Like he wasn't originally in the episode, but they reshot it with him in the
I did not
captain
read
seat.
that.
I didn't know that.
Probably why it looks so green screeny, but I will say it looks really cool. Looks good.
I think the bridge of that ship looks amazing. It feels very Discovery with the wall-to-wall view screen.
Mm-hmm.
Very Kelvin timeline as well. But that was one of the things that I actually liked about it. It wasn't just a window in the front of the bridge. It was total, wide view.
IMAX.
It was nice.
The IMAX view.
Yeah.
It was nice.
Yeah. Riker was very sharp as always, so very glad to see him. I mean, always glad to see him. So
Really interesting thing to me is Riker calls it the toughest, fastest, most powerful ship. And he's talking to somebody who has been Starfleet head of security for how long?
No shit, dipshit.
all
Yeah,
of
I
a
know
sudden,
that.
they're enemies.
Right.
This
He didn't have an ounce of surprise on his face.
Nope.
But then again, I think wasn't he prepped by Picard that this was happening?
he might
Kind of,
have.
sorta. I mean, you would think, but when Shades leaves Starfleet to go put on her shoulder pads, that they would know at that point that she's on this side mission or she has a different mission.
Who knows?
Yeah. It just bothered me a little bit where I felt like Commodore Shades could have been, I know all the prefix codes for your ships, get out of the way.
Oh, that's
And
right. Wasn't she?
it would have been because
That excites me.
she was the head of Starfleet security. And it would have been an interesting standoff right there because you would have had Riker on his fleet with no shields because Commodore O would have taken their shields away. Ships would be fighting in orbit. Riker's life would be on the line. And if we accepted my previous position where the people on the ground have been subdued by the synths, then we have the synths and Riker. Goddamn William Riker. His life is now on the line between a conversation that has to take place between Picard and Soji to stop Synthulu from showing up. That would have added some compelling weight and drama. Instead,
that would have been so badass. That would have
right?
been so much
And
better.
it would have made Commodore O, instead of just being Commodore sunglasses or Commodore shades,
Actually fucking do something.
It would have brought her level up from, okay, she's insidious and vicious. I got that. But she would have been 100% terrifying if Riker had been like, I'm in the toughest, fastest, most powerful ship, and all of our weapons are targeting your warp cores. And Commodore O was like, I know all your prefix codes. Send now. And did you see like the ship-wide shield grid go? And then everybody is bought in because now Riker, if you watched the series up to now and you hadn't felt for any other character besides Picard, now Riker is here and Riker could die. And Riker has a wife and a daughter and this traumatic backstory with his son dying. And oh my crap.
Right.
That would have been compelling.
Why do they have people writing this show who are fucking stupid?
Because they don't listen to my podcast with you guys, our podcast.
Right.
Prefix codes. I didn't think of that, but of course Dad thinks of that. And that's like,
That's right. I didn't think of that, but that's why you have a room of people, because here are the three of us. Watney, you and I did not think prefix code.
No, it's okay
all,
that I didn't think of it. I'm not saying like, oh, I should have, but like, I'm just, that exists is what I'm saying. That solution, that occurrence, that could have happened. And it would have been so fucking good. It would have given a reason in present day time when this was going down for Commodore O to be the Commodore the head of Starfleet intelligence.
Mhm.
It would
Right.
have wrapped up her, it would have literally wrapped up her arc, and it would have added more gravity to the actual situation.
Yes.
Not just Picard now, it's also Riker. It would have like taken the things that they set up, just like the whole synth thing. It would have
Mhm.
taken things that they wrote and made it matter.
Yeah.
But we don't get that. Instead, we get Riker being a badass, which is fine.
Yeah.
I'm totally down with Riker being a badass, but not one shot gets fired in this fleet.
I
We
was
have a
disappointed.
We have a standoff, and on one hand, I'm disappointed because it would have been cool to have a space battle here, but also at the same time, lives were spared. So I'm sort of there and there, you know. And this beacon is lighting up the sky. Picard asks Soji again, show them how profoundly wrong they are. And Synthulu is popping out of here. And by Synthulu, I mean Dr. Octopus from Spider-Man 2.
Literally the same arms, yes.
Yeah, just the same arms with, that was Spider-Man 2 came out in 2004. So it's been 16 years of better graphics for these things. Of course, the plea works. Soji shuts down the beacon. Picard calls Will to express awesomeness, and Will's like,
By the way, I'm
"What?"
gonna die.
Yeah, he
Didn't say
doesn't
it.
say that. Doesn't say that at all. No, that's in my notes too. But I do like the line where Riker's like, what am I supposed to do? Sit around the woods making pizza?
That was a great line.
When I told you I wasn't going to try to stop you, that doesn't mean I wasn't going to let you have all the fun.
It's so fucking good. Like, Riker doesn't have to be either or.
Mhm.
He can do both, and he does both well. He's an excellent family man and husband and father. He's caring, he's emotional, he's also a warrior, an explorer. And then like he has like, instead of a duality fighting within him, like I feel like we get with Picard,
Mhm.
I feel like with Riker, he puts the shoe back on and he runs. Like he can do that. And he did it so well. He just falls right back into what he's done his whole life. It's not like Picard, who took time off and like suddenly is having trouble with this and that. Of course he has a brain problem, but like character wise, Riker, it was very solid, and it just really made me happy to see a character from TNG that was like doing that good.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think Riker nailed everything that he was supposed to do in this scene. I think the writers did him a disservice by not adding him, as I mentioned, to the drama. And Watney, you nailed it on the head by closing our Kamino Ozark.
Yeah.
Picard is beamed back to the facility, but not to the hospital facilities on the site, just to a concrete block in the middle of the ground.
Well, because it would have made too much sense to beam the man to
So
the freaking
she's
sick bay.
literally like, can't you take him to the medical ward or to the sick bay on one of your ships? As if Riker's fleet hasn't just bailed right now. As if Picard isn't telling Riker, I'm dying and it would be great if you were here with me during this time.
But no, Riker's like, I'm a dip.
Riker
Peace
was
out.
like, Riker was like, you got it from here, Jean-Luc, and then he fucking
was.
doesn't. And that's sad to me that Picard and him never really got to say goodbye.
Mhm.
And it is a goodbye that I felt like I was really missed out on, because I'm gonna cry.
Our heroes deserved
Mhm.
to say goodbye to Picard. Worf, Geordi, Beverly, Deanna, Riker, they deserved their moment with Picard. I know that this is his new crew and the show is about them, and that's great.
Mhm.
But if y'all had followed my advice and had Captain Worf and Geordi show up on that damn ship with Deanna by the side of Riker on another damn ship, they could all have been here and it would have been sensational.
Yes.
But that didn't happen.
Picard longed for that family.
Yeah, he did.
Well, that's
And then they were nowhere to be found when he literally died. And I don't care that he was re-uploaded. The Picard that we saw through through the movies, through TNG, any other iteration, he's dead.
Yeah.
Um,
That's where my brain is on that. Jean-Luc Picard is dead. A copy of his memories exists in a golem that will be present in season 2, but that's really going to kill a lot of the audience enthusiasm because we're not watching Jean-Luc Picard anymore. We're watching a golem run around with his memories.
So that's actually a philosophical thing I kind of got into with somebody was, in my opinion, the RP we did with McLean, Jen, Dominion War, Athene blowing up. McLean, he had a copy. He was supposed to make a copy of himself.
Right.
Now, when you make a backup of somebody's brain, of course, this is all fucking science fiction, but theoretically, when you make a backup of somebody's brain, you save that, they die, you re-upload them into something else.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the same person.
Right.
That's the consciousness that kept that experience going was terminated and severed. So if that, I don't think that's what they did with Picard. I think that they transferred his mind because they talked about mind transferring with Girardi, and transferring is different to me. There's a lot of different ways you can, Sci-Fi goes about this, Cyberpunk goes about this. You upload a backup, if you see an altered carbon, you see like the stacks and you're just switching bodies. And in that case, I don't think I think that's the same person because you're not changing where that consciousness is hosted. So I could wax philosophy on that all day, but ultimately, while it might be the same mind, it is now forever changed and altered because the body it was in died.
Well, what makes you? Your body or your mind and your consciousness?
I think it's a combination.
Right. I mean, to me, I think the body's just a vessel. It's just if I were to have everything that was me, my consciousness, memories, put into a body that looked exactly like me but was a construct, I wouldn't feel that I'm any less me than I was just because I'm.
Are you sure? Can you exist without a body in that state? And Picard had several things done to his physical form over the course of TNG that altered his character. He had a titanium heart, or he had duratanium, whatever. He had like heart transplants,
Yeah.
But that experience, he still has that. He didn't lose the experience, and that's still who he is.
Right, but imagine yourself being lactose intolerant and that being a part of like how you've altered your life, and then suddenly you have a body where you can eat a gallon of ice cream and nothing happens. There's like a lot of different nuances I think people ignore when they say I would be virtually the same person if I was uploaded into a separate body, but it was the same mind. I think you would continue having the experience that you were having, and I'm not going to say souls don't exist, but I do think that the iteration that we followed of Picard, that exact iteration, that is gone.
Oh yes, I agree with you. I'm not arguing that part. It's just I think that's, you're right. It takes us into this kind of philosophical, well, what makes you? And we could probably spend the rest of the night on that.
As Trek fans, we love to talk about that because historically Trek has delved into those kinds of topics, explored them. So I understand why we start talking about this kind of thing, because that's where we want Trek to go. But that's not where this Trek went. This Trek said, we uploaded you, congrats, you have 10 years left, your body's the exact same, and you don't have superpowers.
Yep.
Fucking why? I would be pissed off if you uploaded me into a new body and you didn't make me young. and fucking Superman,
right?
And immortal. I mean, immortality obviously has its downsides.
Go
ahead, Tag.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I Jean-Luc Picard did not have the character to be okay with being uploaded into a synth body. He spent a lot of time in this episode, the last 3 weeks, accepting the fact that he was going to die and it was going to be soon. And I think the writer's choice to subvert that expectation will devalue Picard going forward. I'm a little upset about it. Picard didn't get a choice, which was what this episode was all about. He just died, and his buddies were like, "Hey, we've got a golem. Let's upload him there." And what
we
about
miss you
Alton?
too much. We're just gonna upload you.
Right. And
You're
they do
100%
that.
right.
They did it twice in this episode, and that's what I'm mad about. That's what I've been talking to you guys about for 2 days about why I'm so ticked, is because 2 slides from now, I'm going to let you know why.
Well, let's get to
Okay.
that.
Right.
All right, so Seven and Rios have a moment here. They're
Yeah.
mourning. It's the typical.
But why?
He's dead, and they're mourning. Right.
Why not have
exactly.
her talk with Raffi, who she's
Knowing-
gonna get with?
Well, and that brings up a good point. Is first of all, knowing that Picard's going to get resurrected, these scenes are useless.
Yes.
The weight
Why are you
of-
crying?
The weight
Why?
of these scenes is totally annihilated a minute, 60 seconds later. There's no purpose for these scenes whatsoever based on the end of the movie.
Unless they're just talking
Series.
about the
Season.
journey thus far
Right.
and the conclusion of that.
Elnor,
With Raffi and Elnor are clearly not thinking about the journey.
right. Elnor falls completely apart. Now, Watney, you bring up a really good point. At the end of this episode, we see that Seven and Raffi are connecting. If Seven and Raffi had been here instead, we would have been able to see at least a preface of that connection.
That actually gives me chills to think about Raffi sitting where Rios is sitting, because
Right.
it would have given us pretext to the hand clasping that we saw, that I'm sure was not just, oh, we're gonna be friends. It's definitely, it would have been nice.
Right. And had that been the case, had this been Raffi and Seven
Mhm.
having that connection moment, prefacing what we see later, it would have been Rios and Elnor here. And seeing Rios and Elnor in a moment of total vulnerability and weakness, and having Rios comfort him the way Raffi's comforting him now, in my opinion, would be the presentation of something that's very rare in media, is 2 adult men expressing sympathy and vulnerability with each other, and neither one of them is joking about it, demeaning the other one,
No
making fun
homo.
of it.
Right.
That's not even being said. And that's something that, beyond this podcast, I'm very passionate about, is seeing depictions of adult men working their problems out, being sympathetic towards each other, and not being assholes about it or joking about it or needing alcohol to do it.
Right.
Yeah.
I think you
That would have
laid
been
a,
powerful.
you laid a very good point there. I think there was a huge missed opportunity here on this. Yeah.
And then, right after this moment, we get a flash of white light. And Patrick Stewart wakes up in a chair with Data.
Not Picard, though.
Picard's consciousness is being stored in purgatory, cyber
Mhm.
purgatory, preparing to be uploaded into this golem. Sitting there with Data's consciousness that's sitting in purgatory, and has been for how long on this whole planet? If 3 days ago, Sutra had told Picard, "Oh, if you want to talk to Data here, I can just uplink you to this thing. He's been here for 20 years." Picard would have sat in this unit in this thing for 3 days, and Synthulu would have won.
Yes.
But instead, at the very end, Alton Soong suddenly has this, I don't know what to call it, this avatar of Data that is current as of that upload to B4 in Nemesis. He says he doesn't remember dying, which is a good thing to say to keep with the continuity, because by the time Data uploaded himself to B4, he hadn't died yet.
That's correct. I like
so
the
it makes
continuity.
sense. that Data wouldn't recognize his death. He's also wearing his uniform, and whoever listened to us about the first episode, they got back into the airbrushed his hairline and made it Data.
Mm-hmm.
Good job. But Data's consciousness, for all intents and purposes, up through that upload to B4, has been here the whole time, and nobody bothered to tell or distract Picard with that. Instead of napping in that room with the pretty windows, he could have been sitting here talking to Data, not worrying about a damn thing.
It's so the way I interpreted in the moment the situation was Data has been there on for 14 years.
It's a highly
Or
sophisticated
or since
quantum
Nemesis.
simulation.
Yeah.
Okay, so I get that. It's like Tron, right?
Yes.
You go in, there's avatars, you can interact with them.
Mhm.
There's things. It's like a holodeck, but in
Right.
it's a program. So
Mhm.
I understand why a Picard could be uploaded. So
Mhm.
weird to think that Data has been awake for the period of time to where that colony was formed 14 years ago.
Mhm.
Is that right?
Mhm.
So imagine living in that. Well, I'm sure he could bend that to his will, honestly, unless he was in that room for 14 years. And I really thought Data was Data in the scene. I mean,
I felt that.
I felt it from the way he was philosophizing with Picard, to his mannerisms, to the general sense of things. I felt like it was Data.
Yeah.
And it was really incredible to see them together, even if it wasn't technically in physical space as we always experienced them, but it was still cool to see them interacting. I wish that they had a fucking light bulb in the room, but it'll have to do.
And Brent
The
Spiner
end,
looked
though.
good here. They spent it looked like they spent a lot of time making sure that they
I
got
agree.
his look as best that they could look like the Data that we remember. You can tell that they put in that extra to get that done.
Yeah. I think that was okay. I think, and going off of what Watney said about, his consciousness has basically been plugged in for 14 years.
Mm-hmm.
This entire episode, again, has been about how organics never gave the synths a choice. And you've got Data, the granddaddy of synths on this planet, stuck in a simulation. You can't get him a body.
You have a fucking golem. Why can't you just make Data again?
Why didn't we have Data on this planet 14 years ago? Why didn't he walk out and greet Picard and give us, again, another compelling reason to be invested in these synths?
Here's
instead
why.
Of
and
creating another Soong.
Maddox should have mentioned that they had a date cop, because he knew he was there. He was living there and working there. He knew that they had Data there.
Right.
And yet this is the first time we hear about it in the fucking finale.
I think I
Right.
know why.
Okay.
I think I know why.
Okay.
Excuse me. So, Data uploads, does his copy and paste to B4. Data is destroyed, and B4 goes in to study. Eventually, the positronic matrix fails. They're able to cultivate one neuron out of B4, the Data / B4.
Yeah, and they can reconstitute all of his memories. Data says that.
Okay, so they have this one neuron, and so and it's from. It's like you have a backup. You working on some data, some information for 3 days, and your computer crashes, it dies. You've got this document you've been working on. It's done, and you have to go and restore that copy. It's like, oh shit, the last time my backup worked was 3 days ago. So you do take that step back and you restore that, and then you have that one neuron, that one thing. If you can replicate off of that parent neuron, you're not going to take the one source you have and put it in a body, because then what are you going to source the other replicants off of? A copy of a copy? They're not. And I totally get what you're saying. Why wasn't Data reconstituted? It's because that was all they had for being able to create the others. That was like the seed of life.
Now we just begin a discussion on cybernetic ethics. Is it ethical to keep a sentient life form virtually, and I mean that literally, virtually enslaved in the service to breeding multiple other people? I mean,
And what Maddox, the spirit of Maddox was in the beginning.
Right. And there's a movie, there's a TV show about that, a book, the Handmaid's Tale.
The Handmaid's Tale.
Where a person, their specific purpose on life is to breed. Data is in this role here, if what Jay is saying is true. Now, I don't disagree from an in-universe perspective. It's just that there's a ton of creativity and imagination that could have gone into this, that the three of us on this podcast are coming up with and composing what I feel to be a superior narrative to what we got in the last episode. After spending 9 episodes bending over backwards to make sense of it, I'm disappointed.
I'm on the same page. I am so sad that I feel this way.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to feel this way. And to see Picard die for it is very frustrating. And you can shoehorn it however you want, that he's alive and the show will continue, but that disregards, it just like takes the weight of the death of a character out. And Dag, you said it last Beyond Trek episode, I'm here until Picard's end of line. This is it.
Right. And I feel so broken about that. Knowing that Guinan got asked by Patrick Stewart to be, or Whoopi Goldberg got asked by Patrick Stewart to be on season 2, and now I'm over here going, yeah, but it's not Picard. I have words. We're not at the end of the deck yet, but I have words. And there's
more words. We have lots of words. This is a podcast, so that's okay.
We really appreciate you sticking with us to this point. This is probably our longest episode ever.
It is.
Thank you very much.
We're over 2 hours.
We're still going.
That's fine. It's the finale. Whatever.
Right.
Holy hell.
Jesus.
So great scene with Data. Let's move on.
It was beautiful.
It was beautiful.
Really was beautiful.
He got to say goodbye the way that he was not able to before.
Right. And in a sense there, in my brain I was like, well, at least Data got to go out on his own terms, but he got to go out on his own terms in Nemesis. And that was kind of a better death. Picard's resurrected. They talk about his new body. It's not any different than his old body, so he's not going to be Jean-Luc.
None of it mattered.
4-year-old super droid.
Mm-hmm.
And Data's last request was, "Kill me, Billy." And Picard, they have a little eulogy, which is nice. And Picard pulls the plug on these USB sticks.
Is it bad that I could hear the USB unplug sound during that scene?
You know what I heard in that scene? I heard the DS9 turbo lift scene noise in that sequence.
Yeah.
When Picard wakes up, I heard that DS9 turbo lift sound. I went, hello.
It's like Data always wanted to be human.
Yes.
And this was his way of making that final. This was his way of saying, I am going to die. I'm going to die despite Soong. I'm going to die despite how I was created, because doing that gives me meaning, gives what I've done meaning. So I thought it was very beautiful that he made that choice. And it was very, very sad to see. I mean, obviously Nemesis is sad, but you didn't get to see a character die. You saw a ship explode. So
we got really tossed around in the last 10 minutes of this episode.
I felt very kind of emotionally manipulated, honestly.
Picard's dead. Picard's alive. Data's alive. Data's dead. What was this episode trying to tell us? What was it about? even here, you have this virtual Picard sitting next to Data, holding his hand, wearing his TNG uniform, implying a sense of sentiment on Data's part that those years were the golden years with those uniforms.
Okay.
Data ages and dies here. Brent Spiner, if you're listening, I strongly feel like you felt like Leonard Nimoy here, where you're like, kill Data, please. I don't ever want you guys asking me again to be in this role. Make him dead. Make it permanent. Tell the audience and the fans, I'm done. No chance. Ever.
Which is totally understandable. I think
I
I'm
will
on his
say
side
I
of
don't
the
like
thing.
how I don't really like how it happened in Nemesis, but I think at the time it was kind of like this is the job and this could happen. Like Deanna Troi taking her commander test sent Geordi to his death.
Yeah.
That kind of shit happens in the void of space. Space is just about making it until it gets you. So with seeing it happen as it did in Nemesis felt true to the vibe and the time that they were in, and seeing it this way felt true because a lot of the themes this show has had involve like aging and what that means. And so it was cool to see Data kind of like maybe thinking the same things as Picard all those years.
Yes.
Yeah. There's a cool sequence where it fades into this sort of nebula sequence. Data's head becomes the stars, and Picard's red uniform there becomes that red nebula.
Oh yeah, that was beautiful.
So I thought that was really cool. And then we seg back to La Serena, and we get Girardi, who no longer has to face any consequences for Bruce Maddox in a relationship with Rios.
Jesus.
We get
Well, okay, to be fair, I think we've established with Girardi that she was under the influence of the admonition. And I think that like they talked about that while she was in her coma or something, that like, or when she woke up, that the admonition changes like your, like it has an influence on you, kind of like what the fuck is it called in Mass Effect? You get indoctrination by the Reapers, like just by being in a close proximity to them, they'll start to influence you. So it's kind of like, I think that may have been what's happening with her, or what had happened with her, and in that case, was she in the right state of mind to prosecute her for something that she was basically didn't know that was going to happen to her? Like she had no control.
I can believe that if there was a report sent to Starfleet and the proper authorities that based on the circumstances of her actions, they could have been waived, mitigated by how she helped Picard get out and make that plea for Soji.
Okay.
I can see that. The show has had me reaching all season. I can let
Might
that
as
happen.
well. Yeah.
Seven and Raffi, we've been talking about it for 2 days. They didn't have one damn scene together, except maybe in the Chateau deck when they were planning their
planning the heist. That was
that heist. There might have been some lines between them there, but not enough to suggest that this was anyway happening. Not that I'm disappointed by it, just that it just happened.
Pause for thought. There's a bottle of alcohol next to Raffi, despite the fact that she's trying to be sober. Seven is definitely an alcoholic, or she uses it in ways that's maybe not an addiction, but she uses it in ways to calm herself or to get out of a situation emotionally. So my thought is that this is not going to be a healthy relationship in season 2 if it continues to them.
If it continues, it'll be cool to see that they keep that thread going. I like that idea.
And you see the game they're playing there? We saw that.
Trivia.
Oh, okay. I don't want to.
Yes, they are playing a game in the scene. Eagle-eyed viewers already know what it is, but if you haven't, we're going to hit trivia in just a few minutes.
She's the best at the game, so I'll just say
yeah. We do get the great send-off scene, Engage. Everybody's there. Elnor is still coming along for this. I guess we're not taking him back home to the Kawatmalat anytime soon. Seven's here. None of the holograms are here, but it's suggested that this is our cast for Picard season 2. Not that it wouldn't surprise me if Jerry Ryan didn't come back for season 2.
I
hope
think
she
that
does.
Durrati will definitely be there too. She's not in that picture, but
she is. She's over
to the end there. She's right here.
no, that's what I'm saying is Durrati.
Oh,
She's not in the picture, but
yeah,
I think she will definitely be.
Yeah, her
Just
purpose. You're right.
So you don't think she's going to be part of the crew in the next season because she doesn't?
No. Oh, you mean Jerry Ryan?
No,
No,
Durrati.
Durrati.
Oh, no, I do. I just think that the picture doesn't have her in it, but I think
She's
she
right
will be there.
She's right there.
Fucking where?
On the, I don't know, over there. Where, yeah, circle it in red.
Oh, okay. Discord is blocking the.
Oh,
God.
that's weird.
Oops.
That's
Anyway.
weird.
Yeah.
I hope that we get these people, all of them, especially Jerry Ryan, in season 2. Right here, this crew, I like what I'm seeing here. I hope that we get some consistency, and I would love. I mean, who wouldn't love having Seven of Nine being a part of this crew, being on Star Trek again? I think that she should certainly stay. So, yeah.
Now, we have talked a lot, before we get into trivia, we've talked a lot about things that could have gone better or things that maybe the audience deserved to see. And there's 2 more things here on my list that I think the audience deserved to see these things.
Mm-hmm.
I think the audience deserved to see a reconciliation between Raffi and her son. Raffi got validated. The conspiracy theories that got her kicked out of Starfleet, that alienated her husband and son from her, were true. And it would have been nice to see her get back on level footing with her son. I think that would have been great.
It doesn't even have to be a face-to-face scene. It can be her holding a data pad and getting an inbox message from her son.
Yeah, 100%.
You know, it can be stuff like that. It's just like the idea that the word has gotten out that what she believed was true, and he reached out to her. Now, I think that is a little bit of like an audience wish fulfillment, which you can argue if we as audience deserve that or not. But like in reality, if you have a parent that did that, you were under no obligation to reach out to them if they were shitty to you.
True.
Growing up. So I think, obviously we care about Raffi a lot more than we care about her son. But if you were in her kid's shoes and you required, a parent during your formative years and they weren't there, you are not obligated to reach out to them. If you are under no contact, that's your right to do that. But I do agree, Dag, it would have been cool to at least see them. Maybe not, I want to be your full 100% son now, but maybe like, I was glad to see you. I was upset. I hope you're doing well. Something like that.
That would have been nice. Number 2 is, and maybe I'm reading into it too much, but Rios didn't really get any closure for what happened to him on the Ibn Majid. Like, I know he talked about it in a therapy session and they validated him, but I kind of feel like Starfleet owes him a big fucking apology.
I don't disagree with you on that.
The apologies Starfleet owes are so long. Like,
a lot of them.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And the fact that we didn't catch O at the end. Mrs. infiltrated Starfleet and became head of Starfleet security, didn't get caught and brought back in chains, just extends that further. And
the Romulans are supposed to be. Go ahead. Sorry.
I just feel like they're going to ignore all this in the next season.
Wow.
They're
Total
going to reset it, and we're going to do Picard and Whoopi Goldberg, and it's going to be great and fine. And that leads me to another point. How fucking sad is it going to be when Deanna Troi can't read Jean-Luc Picard?
Oh. You're right.
Why you gotta say stuff like this?
You're right.
Because it's at the top of my damn list.
Why'd you go there?
I went there.
Wow.
And they just expect in universe for everyone to be okay with this. I mean, I can imagine everybody on the ship is
They
okay
don't have
with
a
it
choice.
because it's fine.
He's gonna
but
try and
Riker,
play it off, and if Troy comes
Deanna?
back, she gonna be like,
I can't read you. Oh, I'm a synth now. Oh, okay. What? Excuse me. We've just found a technology that's Betazoid proof. Get everybody into one of these outfits.
that's just like it's just kind of the whole idea with Picard. I guess it is in character because he didn't really connect fully with his crew and play poker with them until the very last episode of TNG.
Right.
So, it goes in line with like, oh, I don't want them to know that I'm a synth. Like, I don't think he would tell them that. I don't think he would disclose it because he's the type of guy who's like, I don't want to talk about it or you're going to piss me off. Like he straight up said that to people.
Yeah,
he
he
doesn't
did.
want to connect like that.
Right.
But it just seems like,
But
He's
also
not going to go on
acknowledges-
Facebook and say "New Year, new me."
New
No.
body, who dis?
no.
But he acknowledges it to Soji when we finally find out there's a throwaway line at the end. The synth ban has been lifted.
Hmm.
Great, because Picard is
And he
synth
says that.
now.
He says that. She's like, now that the synth ban is lifted, I'm gonna go enjoy stuff and that's good for me. And Picard's like, yeah, me too. Because I'm a synth. And the fact that he acknowledges that makes me think that he's not going to keep it a secret. And it's going to be a thing that we're going to have to deal with. And they need to deal with that, okay? They can't just throw away the fact that he's a synth now and
Yes.
there's repercussions for that.
Yes.
And if Guinan is going to be in season 2, she has to be part of that soul-searching existential moment. I feel strongly that based on the synth's demands for choice and to be able to make their own choice, that this new Picard, season 2 should be about whether or not he wants to be Picard. He might have all the memories and everything like that, but he is not the same entity, in my opinion. Now, consciousness transfer being what it is, it's debatable. And if the writers say that's what it is, then I have to live with that. But season 2 could be really, really strong if it tackled what it means to be alive and to have choice the way Picard and this episode made it a very important point.
I think this does need to be dealt with. This is it's too big to just have it all happen off screen and get to season 2 and somehow it's not brought up again or doesn't matter. It's too big. And every time you say it, like it hits me different each way. You said Picard is a synth. That hasn't sunk in. Like that has, I have not come to grips with, like, wow, the Picard that I grew up with and watched all this time, he is now an android, a synth. And that's just, it's going to take a bit to wrap my head around that.
I don't think that the writers don't really care if you wrap your head around it.
Right?
BigJ,
Well, yeah,
because
no, I know.
I mean, I care if you do. I
Yeah.
had a very extreme emotional reaction to the whole thing because I see it as Picard's end of line, the
Mhm.
person we love, the person we watch, the face of Star Trek.
Mm-hmm.
This person is now not a human. They are a synth. They, it's very hard to wrap your head around. And it feels like it was done willy-nilly, for lack of a better term. It feels like it was done, oh, we're going to set it up at the beginning so that he has this brain issue.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the end, we can have this great sacrifice because he knows he's dying. And I'm very disappointed.
Yeah.
That they went there and then they treat it like everything else in the writing of the show, like it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
Or they don't readdress it. I would be surprised. I mean, I'm sure they're going to talk about it in season 2 at some point, but wishful thinking is that it will be a central point of some plot, but who knows?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. We're just gonna have to wait and find out.
They could really revitalize the idea that Star Trek is this very introspective, thoughtful show by having it deal with Picard grappling to accept the fact that he's not quite the same. And however they want to go with that, I might follow if that was the beginning of that journey. I don't think they're going to do that.
It might not be difficult for Picard because he was a Borg at one point. And so he kind of like, he never fully, like he said, was he never fully got his humanity back.
Right.
And so maybe he is comfortable with it. Then again, maybe not. It's a completely different body. The body that was Locutus, that he went through with Locutus, was assimilated and de-assimilated. That body is gone.
Yeah.
You know, that the iteration of that physical vessel and that mind, donezo, forever. That is gone. And that's what being an organic is. Yeah. And now it doesn't matter. And the very thing Data said is, because my life will end, it has meaning. Because Picard died, but he didn't really die, it doesn't feel like it has meaning to us.
Which is why, go ahead.
The opposite. No, I'm just saying
But he will die again.
Okay.
Because they turn off they tweak the thing that will make it to where he will only live as long as he,
like 10 or 20 years,
would have anyway.
Yeah.
They didn't give him immortality.
Yeah, but we don't care about that right now.
Okay.
The audience doesn't really care about the fact that
we're talking about
10-ish years, which humans live. The very first episode of TNG, we saw Bones, who lives to 137 years old. Mm-hmm. So why are they giving an 80-something year old Picard, or he's a 94-something Picard, 10 years? He has another 30, and he even said that. Yeah. It's so weird to me that they're like de-aging humans when in reality it should be getting longer and longer.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. No, that's really good.
How much time are we at? We're
at 2 hours and 25 minutes. No one's going to listen to this. They're going to sit through
My mom will listen to this.
Thanks.
Well, no
Thanks,
teaser.
Mama Dag.
No teaser because
there's no teaser.
They're going to film. So
we'll fly through the trivia. Not a lot to talk about. The first bit of trivia, if you're ready to start.
I mean, I love you guys, and this is great sitting through this. But I think we'll have soldiers out there if they bear with us through this. Well, you know what? Actually, this is perfect that we have one this long because everyone's on lockdown and quarantine. You got nothing better to do. You got nothing else to do. Sit and listen.
We know you're bored.
Yeah, we know you're bored.
Listening.
And you're at home. So, okay, I feel better now.
That's fine. Hit us with trivia. Let's go.
All right. So this first bit of trivia, and when I said at the beginning that I felt like this episode that we were the Demolition Man Terminator Battlestar Galactica podcast, we're about to go into why. Okay. This first image is a little grotesque for our audio listeners. The using somebody's plucked out eye to open a door. First time I remember seeing that was in Demolition Man with Wesley Snipes, when he used the warden's eye to open the door when he was escaping. So that was just what that reminded me of. Number two, kind of minor, but when the screen pops up, it says memory restoration complete. It's using the same font as the hull markings on Federation starships. Next trivia. Girardi mentions the Picard maneuver, which if you are like us, you remember that Picard used this on the Stargazer. And I love the fact that he corrected her. Girardi was like, you did that on the Enterprise. And he was like, it's the Stargazer, but I really need some help.
Time ago.
That was a long time ago.
Right. So cool there, reference to the Picard maneuver. The Romulan battleships look like Cylon Raiders.
Yes, they did.
And it's curious to me that they chose that design in a show about how synths overthrow their organic forebears.
Oh.
Because that's what Battlestar Galactica was about.
Wow.
Next.
Yeah, pretty cool though. Yeah.
Riker references the Treaty of Algeron, which was signed in 2311, and it was the treaty that basically said the Federation can't have cloaking technology. As we can now tell, another part of that treaty is if a Federation citizen asks for protection of a world that is not a Federation protectorate yet, Starfleet can be dispatched to protect that world. And as long as the Starfleet, or as long as the Federation citizens' plea predates a Romulan claim, that treaty mandates that the Romulans have to abide by Starfleet's protection.
Okay.
Cool little
like
factoid there.
Huh.
It's good.
Our next bit of trivia, again, 7 was giving me strong Sarah Connor vibes right there at the end. And Terminator, again, another thing about how synths are taking over the world. Even the piano notes in this scene where she's drinking with Rios are very the Terminator piano theme. That's what I heard.
Oh.
Fascinating.
Watch it again, see the scene again, tell me if I'm wrong, tweet it to me, comment on the YouTube video, let us know what you think about that.
Okay.
The next sequence here, Blue Skies in this scene was performed by Isa Briones, who plays Dodge, Soji, and Sutra. She actually sang that rendition
That was
of Blue
her?
Skies that's playing while Data's dying.
Oh. Wow.
So that's super awesome and powerful. And again,
Yeah.
Blue Skies, of course, was the song that he sang at Deanna Troi and Riker's wedding.
Mm-hmm.
The next bit, Jay, you called it. They're playing a game. They're playing Calto. Calto was a game that was introduced in Star Trek Voyager many times. Tuvok would play that game with Harry, Icheb, and for our audio listeners here, there was a Calto board on the table next to Seven and Raffi in that scene. And that is all for trivia.
I have a quick note. So the first bit of trivia with the eyeball, that's actually a trope. And the name of the trope is borrowed biometric bypass. And you can see this trope in TV movies ranging from Charlie's Angels to Demolition Man, Alien Resurrection. I mean, the trope spans all genres.
Avengers.
Mostly action and sci-fi. Avengers. Really cool that we got to. It's just super, super great. I love it. I love to see it.
Cool.
So yeah, thank you, Dag.
Thanks, Dag.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And thanks to our listeners and our watchers on YouTube and any podcast out there. We really appreciate that you stuck with us through this 2.5 hours. We hope that you are safe at home and having, keeping sane. And thank you for letting us be a part of your day.
Yes. And Watney, why don't you tell everyone who's cooped up and trying to keep from getting the Rona where they can find us?
Give me a second. Talk about something else.
You don't.
Oh wait, never mind. I got it.
My heart's broken.
Sorry, I don't have this on prize yet. Okay, so I would love to tell you, BigJ and Doug and audience, where you can find us online. You can check out our Patreon, patreon.com/BeyondTrek. Our Twitter is @BeyondTrekPod. Dag is our Twitter or tweet master, but you can find all of us on Twitter as well. And then for Facebook, you can always follow and like us at facebook.com/BeyondTrekProduction.
Yep. There we go. So we're all over the place. We're everywhere. And so
Yeah.
And guys,
huge.
I just want to tell you, Dag, Watney, for this entire season, it's been a real pleasure. And now, just so our listeners and watchers know, we're not going away. We're still going to be podcasting and talking about Star Trek. And then when Discovery comes up, we'll be doing the weekly thing again. But I just want to tell you guys that before Picard aired, when I came to you guys with the idea of, okay, let's do a weekly thing. Let's commit to, we're going to do a weekly review of Star Trek Picard on top of work, personal life, et cetera. Can we do this? And we did. You guys were great. It's one of the things I've always looked forward to every week was sitting down and just talking about it. And throughout the weeks, it just like we gelled more, worked more, we grew as podcasters and colleagues and friends. I know I learned a lot more technically, which helped me. Dag, you've knocked it out of the park with your slides and your knowledge. Watney, you're like
I'm cute.
You're
That's why I'm here.
Watney's
Just say
cute.
it.
She's Watney. You got even cuter as the season went on, and our ratings went up with that. So appropriately, you're like the heart and soul of the place and the emotion of the podcast. But thank you guys for doing this every week. I know it's probably was not always easy, but I think that's great. And once Discovery comes around, I definitely hope we can do that again. Do a weekly thing, and
we'll be there.
Yeah.
And in between.
Right, and in between. Well, what do we got going on in between? One
we'll
or two
be
a month, a couple weeks.
Oh yeah, you'll get content from us for sure. Don't worry about that.
I need time to rest. I've been editing the hell out of this stuff. We're out.
Thank you, BigJ. Yeah, it's been an honor with you too for the first season. It's a truck show like this as it's airing, and it's even more fun to talk about it with beloved friends. So thank you so much.
It is. All right, everyone. Well, thanks for listening. We hope to see you back again soon.
Live long and prosper.
And as Q would say, see you out there.
We are Beyond Trek Podcast. Lower your inhibitions and surrender your ears. We will add inspirational and hilarious Trek content to your day. Your attention will adapt to subscribe to us. Resistance is futile.